Oh no, we're live. I mean,
Yeah, here we go, man. We're
yeah,
live. Hopefully, people will jump in the chat or whatever. But like, kind of what I wanted to talk about through some of this stuff is just what I'm seeing on like the indie comic pages
hmm
that I'm posting things on. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff getting made, and
yeah,
like they're getting fully funded, and you know, it's like you can tell it's trial and error, right?
yeah. I mean, it's been a struggle so far, but I'm expecting that from the first Kickstarter. First of all, they don't know anything about us. We have to really introduce ourselves to them as a person. I think people want to know your side more than mine, since you are a Hawaiian. Like they want that whole make sure that this is not like something like a money grab.
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah, definitely saw some feedback on that.
yeah, the only thing is like on my side, I can only say is that I understand the island, like the idea of no natives or people coming in and taking, because I am from an island myself. I understand that pride. I understand that there is something like special. I mean, like every day when I was born in Puerto Rico. I was born on an island that's so beautiful. Was a rich culture in itself. Um, as like you said, mine's it's a melting pot in Puerto Rico of different cultures, and we developed our own heritage and all that. Um, and seeing people coming in from the outside, it can get kind of annoying,
Yeah,
and like entering and then taking what's ours, and I that's a deep rooted thing that I understand. I mean, I
yeah.
don't understand, like I don't fully comprehend Hawaiian culture because I haven't studied into it. Uh, but the idea of being an islander and like being proud of one culture, pride of like owning, like I was born in Puerto Rico. I have that much pride. It's in there. It's in me. It's not like I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting part about it, and I've been trying to figure out the best way to say it because I feel like people are like way too worried about what other people think right now.
Mhm,
And so, with people raising questions, I think that
mhm.
that was something that I was fully aware of from the start. Like, it, there's no secret that exploitative things are done daily for people to do a cash grab. But for me, I think it's different. Um, because we are bringing so much, you know, thought process into it. Like there's
Yeah.
multiple perspectives, but that's the confusion. I'm not bringing the native Hawaiian perspective. I'm bringing my perspective of how I viewed native Hawaiians and how I viewed the area. And that's my piece. And then
Yeah.
obviously we talk to other people. You have your own thoughts about, where you came from with your island. So it's kind of like we put it all together and people can see what we believe the representation is, right?
And yeah, and I
Um,
think that's what I want, like future conversation. I think we're gonna have as like what is the vision, like the narrative should probably be more focused on the people that are not, and like people who are on the island, you know, but people that we understand as like culturally wise. We don't want to misrepresent anybody.
yeah,
Um,
and there's a divergence between cultures, right? So
yeah,
there's like a
yeah,
there's like a
yeah,
like a there's like a local Hawaii pop culture, and it's always been really electric, man. I mean, like you live on a rock, you see the same people every day, but it's so exciting and beautiful. It's like you make things happen.
yeah,
Um, but then there's the native aspect. But see, what a lot of people don't understand is there's a lot of other aspects. I mean, there are a lot of people that live there. There are a lot of things that they bring their culture over into it. That's what kind of makes it a melting pot. That's like pidgin English is like this amalgamation of all these things, grammatically, vocabulary, even just inflection. And they've kind of found everybody's found a way to kind of put it together. And that's kind of what I want to push on, where it's like that local culture as a whole pulls in native culture, other places, just the things that I saw with my eyes and experience living there. And then, I brought my own culture there. Like, I'm a Southern dude. I mean, I
yeah,
think I think people know that like Southern people have their own thing. I don't believe in the, stupid heritage of a Confederate crap, but like, we have ways of doing things, family oriented, very religious for the most part. The stereotypes are kind of real. But for me to go there and fit in with so many people and just find like some of the best friends I've ever had, we had so much in common. So it isn't strange to think like that, hey man, this guy could get it. I'm not saying I understand the whole deal, but I just want to give what I know out there because it changed me. And that's what this book needs to do, right? Like show people something to look at.
Definitely. I think directing the story to a perspective of you and your experiences instead of, because then you're focusing on your experiences around and the people you are contacting with, and man, and you can get like, you know, contributions from people that you know that you're probably basing these characters off, and shortening in a respective way. You know, I don't think we're gonna die. I think you telling me the story, you're focused on more of the character based, more so, and the heritage that all these different types of people do.
Yeah. Well, the other cool part about it is it's like
John,
yeah.
John wrote you a comment. I think you need to send. He said, "How do I get on?"
Okay, I can bring him in for sure. But while I'm doing that, yeah. So Bree asked like, what was the inspiration for the story? So basically, the story's changed a lot. Like it's changed a lot. But there was a point in time where like I kind of just felt like my whole world was ending when I was over there, and you know, a lot of people think like, "Oh man, you lived in Hawaii, like it was whatever." Nah, dude, nah, dude. That's why I can have like this. That's why I feel like I have a platform to stand on and speak, because I got to see the real neighborhoods, the real people, the real love, the real community, the real support. And if it weren't for those people, I wouldn't have made it. And it did feel like my world was closing in on me, you know? And so that was pretty much the inspiration for the story. And then, you know, over the years, it's kind of changed from personally motivated things to, I do see the importance of the culture. I do see things that are happening there that are being ignored. And it's just really interesting to me that we live in a world today where if the world ended right now and Hawaii had to kind of just stand on its own, I feel like that place more so than the continental US would find its way faster. They have roots, they have community. There's, you know what I mean? I feel like they would find a rhythm. Yeah. So it's not very hard to see the subcultures. It's all based on respect, and that's kind of how it goes.
I mean, definitely. I think it's a good story. I mean, like I've told you before, I've always wondered the island stories when the world ends, you know, because we always focus on like the bigger pieces of the world, which is connected, like the Americas and like, yeah, bigger landscapes. But it's like, and then it's always the theory is like, okay, maybe if we go to an island, we'll be okay. But really, no, like if you think about it, what would happen to those people at the end of the world? They have lost communication with everything. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah. The sad thing though, and I hate to say this, but like the sad thing is a lot of people do know what's going on. They just don't care. And I think that's something that like when I got that, you saw the comment that we got on Instagram that was, you know, asking about why this was important and were we exploiting and all this kind of stuff. That was the most valid question of all questions.
Yeah.
And definitely. It was because that's more so true than not. And honestly, like everybody knows my kids have Hawaiian blood. I have Southern culture, which is skin deep. And, you know, I don't want them to grow up and not know anything about their culture, but how do you relate it to somebody? How do you relate it to people, teenagers, young adults, or even people in their 30s that are just now finding out about all this stuff? How do you relate it to them? A comic book, man. Like,
yeah,
that's stories, the way you do it.
You want to tell stories that they can see themselves in. And I think that's a valid way of doing it, because you're not just doing this around. You're just doing it. You want to tell a story to show that culture, so also your kids can see themselves in these types of stories, being represented and all that.
Yeah, and on top of that, man, it's just really fun to make the book. Like,
yeah, true that too. I think we were focusing culturally, which is important. But you want to tell stories too. You know, it's a story. You want to tell a story.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like, the story that's interlaced into it is, you know, it's pretty much like any other thing. you imagine something and then you branch out from there. And then like over the years, I'm so glad I let this thing gestate, man. And it really came together when I saw your lines, when I saw you draw Carlos in Unearth, when we did Unearth for Kyle and Image. And, when I saw that, I was like, man, this is the dude. Like, this is the style that we need. This is something, it's clean where it needs to be clean. It's gritty where it needs to be gritty. And it's really, it's pop, like it pops. And I know that's the most cliche thing in the world to say, but like it pops.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate. I mean, it's always good to hear those, because I mean, at that point, right now, looking back at that comic, I was like, I should have done way better. Which, I mean, perspectively, that's just always gonna be me, And it was cool because that's a good starting point to see where we've met, and then how my art style developed. Even with MAUKA, it is right now. That was about like a year and a half ago that we started doing this. So the progression from that point to right now is going to be totally different. So it's going to be cool to see how this book comes, because my way I do my lines, the contrast, and even my coloring has gotten a little better with all the tips and critiques that I've gotten over time, which all help. So it'll be cool to see how it evolves.
Yeah, like, well, what the cool part is, like, people don't understand, because we're pushing this Kickstarter, but like we're doing all this like in our spare time and with no income from it at all. So like we're showing what we can right now, but we fund this book, and it's funny how quickly the world's going to expand, and there will be more. And you get to stretch your legs, I get to stretch mine. Part of the thing I love about it is the collaborative process, because like, when somebody tells me something that I did is cool, the first thing I always do is like, oh man, shut up, like whatever. But when somebody's like, oh man, Marco is really killing it, that to me is like, yeah, we're on to something, because you want to like, and you want your collaborators to flourish as well. So it's kind of like that.
I mean, yeah, I've definitely given me an opportunity. After I drew those 3 landscapes, the first page, I was able to land the other gig, which was the Path of the Pale Rider, which is 2 issues strong in now, which is good. And it's also, that's giving me good experience to now work on MAUKA. That's another good reason. I mean, this collaborator has helped out. You've helped me out, like being able, you've given me a good experience at the beginning, because I know so far now, going through, like, I graduated 2020, I went to the field. Luckily I wrote with you. Then after you, we had that delay. I had to go and search for like new jobs, and I can immediately see how I understand the aspect of being tight on the money.
Yeah, and now you see what you want to work on.
Yeah.
You see what you want to work on. Like, there are so many times when we could have just hung it up and been like, this is it. But instead, it's like, that's the thing we hold on to.
Yeah.
Mandy,
and that time, between that time and that, looking through all these, like trying to find a way to steady myself for this project to kind of progress, I understand the value of my art, and understand like how much for collaborating with someone, what is worth collaborating, and I understand this is worth it, because it's a give. We're both giving to each other. Hopefully my artwork speaks to the story that you want, and and we get this done, and then you're helping me with, like, of course I've told you I had like stories I want to tell, and then by reading your stories, you've kind of helped me understand where I'm going wrong with my story.
Well, it's one of the cool parts about it is it's like when the collaborative process, it's like, if you're not actually leaning on somebody a little bit, then you're not doing it right. That's how I feel. But Mandy had commented and asked, and I know Mandy, she's got a shop in Colorado called the Moxie Poppy, and it's so awesome. It's like, she basically showcases a bunch of artists who do stuff from everything to like cards, prints, paintings, candles, flannels, whatever, like little figurines, anything. So she knows the deal. But she asked, is any of the characters based on anybody I know in real life? The answer to that is always a resounding abso-damn-lutely. Like, I take people, and I don't want to say make a caricature of them, but like, I take some of their base ideals, principles, reactions, things that I can predict in these people. And I put it into a different situation. And then I kind of predict what they would do based on my, interactions with them. So yes, everybody is based on somebody.
Kansas City won. Sorry,
It's-
I was on the back. It was like Kansas City won.
I can't believe that.
I thought so. I was going to Kansas City. I graduated from Kansas City, so I had to.
Yeah, I thought they would, and I hoped they would. But being a Clemson guy and Jalen Hurts in Alabama, it's always a pain in the ass to see him play his best game in a championship, where it's like. But he scared me for a little while, so I wasn't rooting for anybody out loud. But I'm glad that Kansas City won. But
good. So I got you off topic. I was just
no, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah. I mean, I base people off of at least, and even ideas of people, right? Like there are people in your community that you can say fit an archetype. So I kind of like make amalgamations of things and do that kind of stuff. When we get further into the story, I mean, there's Mark. Hey, what's up, Mark? When we get further into the story, we do what I like to call like a reverse mirror, right? So you get to see somebody that I think a lot of people in Hawaii or a lot of people in their own communities, if they're relating to the book, then they're going to look at this character and say, oh man, that's just like so-and-so. Like everybody's going to have somebody that it represents. So it's kind of like playing with characters is a dangerous thing for me too, because you know how I am, dude. I'll kill them in a heartbeat. It's not
what's a good story without killing off someone?
It's not personal, but sometimes, what's that saying? You don't know what you got till it's gone. Sometimes that's a really good part of a story too. Like if people really love a character, you can kill them and they'll love them forever.
Well, I mean, you really gotta watch out sometimes. Killing off character out of nowhere can be like, what the and they'll hate you forever.
Just so everybody knows, we've had a conversation already where it was like Marco vetoed the killing of Koa.
Yeah.
We haven't even finished the first book all the way, and I'm already like, I'm thinking maybe that was an interesting situation. But
well, I think it's also good to talk about. I think Mark talk about the conversation. I think because Koa is a good conscience for the main character. He is someone that's he's possibly, I don't know, man. We gotta talk about it maybe in the future, but I think Koa right now is key, man. Key.
He is. He really is. There's like you said, the conscience of the main character, right? So I had somebody on one of the indie comics groups, and I'm gonna shout out a lot of these places and talk about a lot of people, but like right now it's us. Somebody in the group was like, "Oh man, where's Koa from in the West Side? Like, is it Waianae?" And I was like, "Damn right, bro." And so
it's the zip code. You told me to put the zip code.
Yeah, it's on his chest if anybody wants to know. But the crazy thing about it is, it's like already they can see that he's a strong representation of a West Side character. And not only is he a conscience for the main character, he's a vehicle for the main character, because Koa is a guy that is from the West Side, but has strong ties to everybody around. I think a lot of the reason that some of this story even gets to meander into different areas is because he's there. It's almost like a qualification to even enter that territory is kind of having somebody like that there. So it's really cool to be able to show somebody from the West Side in a positive light, because, as much as we talk about representing things correctly, I'm also not going to lie. Everybody says that the West Side is ghetto. Everybody says that the West Side is, wild, and everybody's a thug and all this kind of stuff. But like, some of the best people in my life come from this place. Like, I don't understand why people rush to judgment, you know. So it's kind of one of those things where he's going to wear the West Side on his sleeve, and it's going to be out there all day, every day, and people are just going to have to get used to the good qualities in this guy. It's going to smash some stereotypes. Just like the last question, Koa's like an amalgamation of like maybe 3 people that I know. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can see that reflected in him as we get further into the story. You know, right now he's just in the preview. He's just kind of like saying, hey man, are you sure you want to do this shit? Like, I don't know, man. This might be bad. Like,
I think, yeah, Cole was a nice yin and yang. It was like they're colors and yang. They're a good yin and yang. That's why it could be a duel. It could be a duel. I mean, I'm not gonna say too much into the story because, you know, they have to find out in the book. But I think Cole is a good yin yang. I think he is good. And you have a lot of interesting characters so far. We've only showed 2, but I've drawn more than 2 characters in this story already. And we've only had the preview pages, but like I said, we've been working this like a year and a half ago, and I kept going. We were just supposed to do 7, but I kept going. I was like, I'm gonna keep drawing this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. To be honest, I'm gonna go back. I have to revisit those pages, but I've already drawn a couple characters that are pretty interesting, like the little girl,
Perla.
the little girl's very important. I think she's gonna be a key important story, and I'm not gonna say the name because again, the first issue is gonna introduce all these characters, but you've really developed these characters. I know you had the story for a while, so it's exciting to draw these characters.
It's cool. And yeah, the little girl, dude, it's cool. We can say her name because it's for the Filipino contingent that I'm sure is probably watching right now. But Perla, everybody's got an Auntie Perla, man. And I always used to like, I used to have this Auntie Perla, and she was, you know, older, but she always had like a childlike thing about her. It's, you know, like if there was one last lumpia, I probably would have to wrestle her for it, or you know, she was always playing games and just talking crap, and it was just kind of a childish thing. So, or a childlike thing. So I kind of like to think about that. And that was kind of the inspiration for that. So a little Filipino girl named Perla makes an entrance at some point soon. And you nailed it, dude. That was a really cool character design. It's always fun to see like what pops out.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I think people are going to be, you ever seen the poster from Preacher where there's like the 300 characters all just kind of everywhere? I feel like by the end of this, we could have a big poster with like MAUKA, the cast of characters.
So far, when I've get the cover commissions, people have been asking me to draw characters. So at some point, I'm going to get to that point where I can draw just a bunch of characters in a faster time. So, hey, that's a possibility. I mean, I've been getting practice on that already.
Speaking of cool children, one of my little soccer kids, a goalie superstar, Paisley is watching apparently. I'm going to try not to cuss, but you know how it is, Paisley. But yeah, you know, it's really cool to see everybody kind of interacting with this too, because you and I talk about it, and I talk about it with like Bree and my kids and a couple of my friends. But like for the most part, man, I don't just like walk around South Carolina talking about a story like this. It's just kind of, it's better told through the pages, right? Like sometimes the hardest thing to do is to tell the story alone. So telling the story through the pages is cool. And I'm glad that people are interacting and jumping in. So people love your drawings of Chinatown, King Street, headed towards Diamond Head. And people, that's the thing. Bree said that they can't wait to see more recognizable images. I don't think people understand exactly how recognizable these things are going to be, because I was a photographer.
I was saying, you'd have to give me some ref, because for that Chinatown, I looked up a whole bunch of references just to make sure it was accurate. That's why I went, like I told you we had this interview with when we were being interviewed by the author of the Lori Kotera, author of the Path Spell Writer. She asked me, how did I get so accurate? I was like, I went to Google Maps and like walked the whole street.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I wanted to experience it before I drew it because I'm the type of person I do my research, and that's why I wanted to make sure when I drew it, it would be not just recognizable. Because in my mind, I was like, I'm drawing an actual place, so people are gonna have to just like get capture of the idea when I'm trying to present, and then I can play around with the landscapes after I show you like where you are.
Yeah, and I think the other cool part is like this is a dystopian story. This is a story where, you know, the world is over and some things have changed. So what's going to be cool is that like when people recognize things through the new landscape of it all, I think that's going to speak volumes to those places. So like there's a comic shop that's, you know, kind of central Oahu. Like there's actually even a place nearby called Mililani MAUKA. Like it's right there, Mililani town, Mililani MAUKA. And there's a comic shop there that's like, if you're on that side of the island, that's your comic shop. And honestly, by this point in time, if you're anywhere on the island, that's probably your comic shop, because it's just like really cool. It's going to be a place, you know, and people are going to recognize and be like, oh man, this Dragon's Lair. To be able to have that kind of like recognition, even if there's no name, even if there's no anything, people are going to know what that is. And when they recognize that, it's gonna show some stuff. And when new people see it, and then if they go to Hawaii and they're like, oh, I want to see if this is really here, it's gonna be there. Hopefully.
Well, it can't be the references and where the location. I'll Google it to the point where I find it. And the exciting part is that you're also adding like, it's not like it's a new locations, because you know the aspect of people like what happens after. You know, you were talking to me about pirates being off the shore. Some people go off and live off like the water, like the shore, or pirates between islands. I remember, because we haven't gone for a discussion on those because we're still focusing on the first one. But I thought I liked the idea of like these, like we go back to Pirateering, because I have a fantasy love of pirates, man.
Oh, dude, like everybody, and especially like we're on during the Super Bowl, so any football fans know that Mike Leach from Washington, when he was coaching at Washington State, and he was just at Mississippi State before he passed away, but they called him the Pirate. You know, he used to recruit all the Polynesian guys, and like everybody's really obsessed with pirates because of Mike Leach. And so it's really cool because in most parts of the continental United States, you couldn't fathom a pirate. But like they think eye patches and grr, right? Like they don't understand. But there are actual, like I could see that. I could see people living strictly right off the edge of civilization there, kind of on their own, you know, scavenging, making things, living their way. That's very realistic, man. There are people that want to do that on Lake Hartwell in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that really calls to me, you know, because I know people like didn't know. I said that I was born in Puerto Rico, so you know I have that island culture and that the Caribbean aspect of it, and all those pirate things. And it always got me, you know. Every time I watch a pirate movie, I was like, oh yeah, look, I live on that Caribbean. I know that island.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's one of these aspects of it that's just cool to play around with. And then there's some other stuff too. Like, I think for me, one of the things is like constantly thinking about what is the native contingent, like the native Hawaii contingent, like the actual blood native Hawaiians. Like, I don't think people realize there's so few already. And it's not very well represented on the island, or not, I wouldn't say well represented, but it's not very like represented in numbers the way people would think it is, because of so much saturation with, you know, the Western culture, tourism, capitalism, all this big push of Chinese business, Japanese business, you know, like all this stuff kind of mixing it up. But thinking about the tribe of natives is super cool to me too, because that's one, you know how we talk about doing references and thinking really long into the story. Well, that's one where like we can literally dig into the past. Mm-hmm. We can see, you know, what that's like. We can learn about it and kind of like show people what we learn along the way. traditional garments, ways of living, ways to make food. You know,
and I know that you talked to me before. You've contacted people that are part of that tribal culture, and you've asked them questions, which I think it's phenomenal. I think it's perfect way to go. I mean, I think that's one of the things that it's so cool about Hawaii is that you have those ability to talk to those people to get those references, because unlike Hawaii, Puerto Rico has lost all these indigenous people. You know, we've lost that connection.
yeah,
So it's cool that you said y'all are connected to the roots of like what the tribal people or the natives were, and you have those contacts, so you'll get a perspective that you won't get anywhere else.
yeah. The oh, by the way, Matt Bracewell I know this dude from high school. Now he does hurry up brands. He says, let's hurry up and get it fully back. I agree. Also, there's going to be a page of some of their stuff in the comics. So,
cool.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. That guy's always supported me, man. Like I remember just being in middle school. You want to talk about a fish out of water, man? Like this kid moved into my school and was just totally different from all the rest of us because he wasn't from there. And as we got older and I moved away and I was him in other places, I kind of saw how hard it was for people like that to really make it through and find their kind of their tribe, their path, you know. But Matt handled it gracefully. I wouldn't say I did the same, but you know, thanks, Matt. We appreciate you backing us and
yeah, for sure,
and doing all the stuff. Man, speaking of backing us, dude, Matt backed us big. I appreciate you, bro. Seriously.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it, man. So that's another 100 gone, bro.
I know. I was just checking. I just saw under 300. I was wondering who did it. You just told me. Thank you, man.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. The cool thing about this is the people don't realize the more we get into our goal, if we get over our goal and all that kind of stuff, then people get extra stuff. We might add extra stickers to the pack. We might add extra prints to the pack. I've already decided that everybody, when this is back, everybody will get a print of Jake Smith's MAUKA pinup, which is like it'll be a full color, full page print. You're also going to get one from Marco of Poison Ivy, which is super tight. You did that for Inktober, right?
That was because, what did I do that for? Oh yeah, every time I get done with the comic, my brain just turns off on any other project. Yeah. So I had to get like something to get me back excited, and I decided to do Poison Ivy. I didn't know it wasn't particularly. It was just like it was Halloween, and it was like Poison Ivy. I was like, oh, that's a cool thing. There's another version of that. I took the Halloween element out. That could be an exclusive, maybe in the future. I drew her as Halloween, and she was stealing little kids' candy, and it was just fun. It was fun for me to get out of thing. But when this came out, I was like, oh, it would be a good print. I mean, I took the Halloween elements because it was out of holiday. Maybe in the future, I'll just post it back up and be like, okay, this is the Poison Ivy holiday version.
You know what? It's super cool though. Like, I don't think people understand like how much stuff we're fans of too, and like how much time we spend. Like, do you know how many Flash stories I've written, or Spider-Man themed ideas that I've written, or Invincible fan fiction? Yeah. Like, so for you to be able to kind of stretch your legs and do some things, man, it's super cool.
Oh, hold up.
Oh,
what? That's
wow.
Did we make it?
We made it.
Hey! Thank you, everybody.
We made it.
It's a good night. Kid City won. You got funded.
Wow, I'm still kind of in shock right now. I'm looking at this to make sure that I'm seeing it correctly, but we are funded.
Wow.
We are funded. Let's see who got us across that finish line here. I might not say anything, but I might. We'll see. Hold on. Let's see. It's taken me a second because I'm just losing my mind a little bit. That's so awesome. Wow. Okay, Ben Hamilton. Let me go ahead and just talk about this guy for a minute because like dude came through and he's now going to be a character in MAUKA.
Thank you guys in the comments. We appreciate it. Congrats.
Man, we are funded. So
you're in disbelief.
Yeah, I'm kind of losing my mind here. So basically, so Ben, let me explain something about Ben. If you've ever met a person with the same kind of theory that I have, but is just completely unafraid to speak his mind and push those limits and find out what the truth is, it's this guy. It's not very often, and I'm going to speak candidly here, but it's not very often that a white Southern dude who moved to Hawaii and realized, you know, kind of how the world works. It's not very often I like to associate myself with other transplanted Howley people because, like, generally you're asking for trouble. But Ben, I met that guy and it was just like immediately. I met him in a comic shop. We played games and I never liked the game aspect of things, but he kind of showed me some of the world building in the games. We talked about comics. We talked about life, moving around, living in Hawaii, and some of the coolest conversations that I've had have been with Ben and some of his friends, some of them which are also comic creators. So for us to get backed by Ben, I just want to say that's kind of what this whole thing is about, man. Like that was part of my tribe out there. That was part of like my hold it down homies, the ones that kept my head above water. And there we go.
Well, there you go, the friends, bro.
they come through big. I can't believe that we made our goal in like in 35 minutes of the live stream. But I
think people needed to meet the people. I think that was what we were missing, the link. You know, we need to see the faces behind the creation. I mean, you are the creator of the comic. I'm the artist. We needed to kind of show our faces so people can understand who we are. And I think it's important to hear where you're coming with the stories because, you know, you had, like you said, at the beginning of the stream, we were talking about it. We were questioning why you're making the story. And it's good to hear that you're doing it because you want to show your experience, what you went through on this island. And I think it'll be a dope story. And I'm excited to draw.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of like almost in tears here. Like this is something that I've been thinking about for, like I said, almost like 13. It's like 13 years at this point. And so it's crazy. It's crazy, man. We're going to actually make it. But there's going to be such good extras. We can keep back in the book, though. Not a finish line because there's so many cool extras. We got Aaron Connolly's cover that's coming up. We have John Rauch's cover that is not only colored by him as the other variants, but this is going to be one of the first times I think a lot of people are going to get to see John's pencil skills, right? So his lines are sick, and he's chosen a really interesting dynamic for his cover idea, and I can't wait to see it.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see it too. It's gonna blow my initial cover and the colors. I'm excited to see it.
I think the thing that I love the most about your cover is that it is exactly what I told you that I envisioned, and so you even added an aspect to it that proved to me that you understood what I was going for. So the original cover is like definitely for real gonna get like framed on my wall for the rest of, you know, eternity. But the interior,
I'm holding you to it. If I don't see it on your wall,
as long as I have a wall, bro, it's gonna be on it. But you know, it's really cool, and I can't even express to people that like every backer is kind of a collaborator in this. That's the cool part of Kickstarter. And you know, we had the plan. I didn't really get there with the execution as far as the pre-launch and everything. Life happens, bro. I don't really know what to say to people other than life happens every day. But we got our bearings. We got back into it. We started doing it right with 65 hours left. And here we are with 59 and a half hours left, and we're there. So next time, I would say that we're going to go ahead and do an email list pretty soon. I'm going to send it out in the updates. We're going to do an email list to sign up for issue 2. Ben, is gonna get a free copy of every book from here on out. So, because you got us across the line, bro. So that's gonna happen.
Don't be saying that, because now people are gonna hold you to it. It's like, I caught you, I helped you too.
Mm-hmm. He was the guy that did this. You know how like runners, they always like do that. That was him. He did that. Got us across the tape. So yeah, no, seriously, everybody jumping in on it's really cool. One of the parts that I kind of want to talk about too is the just the indie comic scene. Like, oh, yeah. I've been a super comic book snob for a really long time. Like, I've wanted to be a writer since I was like in the 7th grade, and I hated it, and then I loved it. And then when I found comics, you know, I had read comics when I was a kid, but I had never seen comics that related to me until my friend Tiny. He was like my brother back in the day. He kind of showed me stories that I would have never seen before. And that was where indie comics kind of kicked in. And I just became snobby about it. Like, you know, only the most indie of indie, and only the most this of this, and only the most pristine of whatever. But then creating comics and trying to push them and trying to get them made and funded and all this kind of stuff, you realize that like there's so many different types of stories and different types of ways to tell stories that like some of the people that gave us the most support, moral support, monetary support, even art contributions, were other artists, were other creators. And you know, one of the things that we're going to do with this as we keep going is we're gonna put things back into the indie comics community as well. So anybody in the indie comic place, I mean, we're gonna do, if we keep hitting our goals and we can kind of make some stretch goals and things in the future, we're gonna give chances for pinups. We're gonna give chances for, you know, paid covers. We're gonna give chances for, you know, us backing some of their stuff. You know, it's a whole communal thing, man. Like we all kind of in this together.
Yeah, I mean, I the past few years I've been going through the indie scene. I agree with you. I've seen so many different types of stories, so many good artists, and it's a fun place to go because the weirdest ideas pop up from the indie world, and I love it. I kind of love that space.
Yeah, well, it is. It's diverse, completely and utterly, and like I've seen stuff from like borderline porn to like anthropomorphic animal things that I would never have imagined. There was one that I saw called Chicken Man, and it was like a dude with a chicken bucket on his head, and he's fighting evil vegetables. Like just things near and dear to my heart, you know. But yeah, even one of our backers said that they're still going to get one of the 3 spots in the in our drinking draw tomorrow.
I'm excited for that. That is exciting.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, since we met our goal, I'm actually going to open it up to if you want to split that with a buddy. If one, like 2 people want to split it and pay for one, we'll do 2 people. Because like so far we've got 1 person in there with us, and that person was probably already going to be a guest in there anyway. It's former UFC fighter Louis Smolka. So as it stands right now, we have several pro comic book artists and writers, us, and 2 former UFC fighters.
I'm ecstatic for that because I don't even know if I'm still considered a rookie in this game, in the comic book world. Yeah, I am a professional, but I'm still very rookie to this game. It's only been 2 years out, or 2 or 3 years I've been doing this. I've been given lucky opportunities I've taken. I've been able to, let's say, capitalize. There you go. That's the word. And then you have great connections that, I mean, I have a good connection with Kyle. He gives me great advice, and I will admire that for the rest of my life. I think he's an awesome dude. Every time I have a question, he answers to me. I swear I feel like I'm bothering him, but he's the nicest person ever. I know. It's just he knows that I'm serious about this, and that's why I think that's one of the things he told me. If I'm serious about this, I mean, he's gonna give me all the advice in the world. And then you have a great connection to John, which is, I know you've been trying to meet with him for a while, and I'm excited because I followed him before I even met you. I followed him on Instagram, Um, I loved his colors, and one time I remember that his Instagram disappeared on me. I was like, "Where's this dude?"
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He
He
likes to
told me
do
he
that.
deleted it.
He likes to do that, man.
But it's funny that I saw his stuff before I met you, and I met you, then you mentioned his name again, and then I rediscovered him again, and it was awesome to hear the comments he made about the first story we made together, about the colors. I'm excited to meet him. Man,
I'm
you have
hoping
great connections. I don't know how you do it. I told you meet you have the best experiences when you tell me stories. I don't even know how to get into those situations.
I'm gonna prove your point right now, because while I'm thinking about it, Thursday night I had the pleasure of being a photographer and shooting an event for the Taj Boyd Foundation. And people don't really know this, but Taj Boyd, well, they should know it, but I'm from, upstate South Carolina originally. And even when I was in Hawaii, I was like one of the only Clemson fans that existed. Not too long ago on our national championship team, Scott Pagano from Wanaloa High School was on that team. It was the biggest thing in the world for me to have a Hawaii guy on the team. But Taj was a quarterback for Clemson the years just before the national championship years. But he was part of the original 12 players that committed when Dabo got the job. And like down here, Dabo Swinney is like a cultural icon, man. The dude is just like BYOG, bring your own guts. Like he just is like the epitome of stick-to-itiveness. I was shooting his event, and like Taj is just really generous. And he doesn't do it in the sense of a lot of other athletes. He was a prominent college athlete. He was in the NFL. He played for the Jets. He played for the Steelers. And now he's a coach. He's a offensive analyst and a position group coach at Clemson. And he's such a leader. And he's also like a really artistic, extremely well-read comic aficionado. He's extremely inspiring in everything that he does. And his foundation gives tools to children to get them their education, be that book bags, backpacks, like pencils, pens, every list that you get at the beginning of the year of all the hundreds of dollars worth of school supplies. They give those out to every kid at Title I schools. And also on top of that, they kind of push kids to do things that they want to do through mentoring, like be that sports, be that, art, writing, music, whatever it is. Like they try to instill things in them. So I was there, and shout out to the Taj Boyd Foundation, because Dabo Swinney got up and gave a speech about growing up in Pelham, Alabama, and his wife, Kathleen, they were dating, and she was from one side of Pelham and he was from the other side. And, he was living on a floor in like a home with a group of people living in it. And she's coming from the other side, driving her car, like money, prominent family members. And, he had issues with his dad being an alcoholic, and basically everything was stacked against the guy. And now he wasn't even thinking about coaching football on up until he was 30 something years old. And now he's won the national championship. How many times? He's like a pillar of the community. So like when I heard that speech, I'm not going to lie, dude, I was working. I was like taking pictures, but I was like, we're going to do this, man. We're going to do this. I want to give big props to that. But Taj is a really good friend. He's a really big supporter. And he's kind of every time every time I've been like, I want to quit, dude. He's like, nah.
You make connections that are worth it, dude. That's been I think that's one of your strongest attributes, is the way you make connections with people. Because like when you, and it translates to the story well too. That's why I think that's what's one of the best things about it, is like when you make a connection, you remember every detail you have with them and how it has changed you and how it supports you and how you are supporting each other. And that's a unique way, a unique attribute to have, because when you create those characters that you're thinking in your head, you're thinking of all these little moments you have with people, and these thoughts and ideas they have, and how it's affected you. And I think that's why your storytelling with characters is so strong. I think that I wish I had that kind of communication skills. I'm an extrovert. I'm not a completely like quiet guy, but at the same time, I'm not the most, talkative person.
Yeah, well, like, I didn't have a choice when I was a kid. My dad was a coach, and it was like, deep South baseball, all this kind of stuff. And I kind of grew up in the community. Like everybody, my dad was kind of like the mean dad to every kid in this freaking community. Like the parents would. I remember I was in class one time. I was a senior in high school, and one of the kids in my class looked at me and he goes, "Man, your dad's gonna be so pissed." I was like, "I know, dude. You better not tell him that I got a D in this class." It was English. And he was like, "No, I'm talking about me." This guy was actually going to go and tell my dad that he made a bad grade in English, so it was like, it was a very hard style of living where even other people were worried about how they, showed themselves in front of that man. So it was like constant trying to be perfect all the time. But at the same time, I had this whole group of people that like I related to. Like when I was like, I really don't want to piss my dad off. Like everybody was like, I know, like, absolutely. We got to help you. Like, let's figure out what we can do. So like, yeah, when you lean on that kind of stuff, it's like, you do realize that every little moment is a big moment. Yeah. It's big in the moment. You know what I mean? Even if it dissipates later or whatever, you learn how to do that kind of stuff. I think it was kind of beat into me to be loud. It was kind of beat into me to like, I needed to say what I needed to say. Otherwise, everybody was going to be like, oh, go play baseball, and I was like, nope, I hate baseball. Not a thing. So being my own person, I had to swim against the current a lot. And like, that's one of the things that I think is cool about you. And it kind of gives me the switch to it, is just like, I feel like you're a very easy going person. You're not trying to push against the current unless you need to. And even when you do that, it's very tactful. That is something that I don't have.
Well, I mean, it's not well, if I went with the stream, I would have got a normal job. So it's like, I can envision. I've worked jobs, like jobs that are unsatisfying. Jobs are nice and they pay well, But in my head, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine doing it every day. I mean, a lot of people do think the same way. They still go through it. But I don't know. I was always, when I grew up, I was envisioned like I wanted. If I'm only living once, I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be good at it. I think that really stuck to me in my early college days. I went to a lot of parties in the freshman year, but after that, I was like, okay, I need to develop my skill. I sat down for those 3 years, and any of my professors can atone to it because I'm pretty sure Kyle saw it too. I never went home. I was always in studio trying to understand. And in terms of like what you're saying, I'll go with the stream with the art wise. I put in that work. That's you have to put in that work. But at the same time, I'm not afraid to just be like, okay, I'm doing my own shit. Get over here. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of one of those things that with this book, I've made pitches before, and I think we're both lucky. Like, and I don't think a lot of people get the same aspect of life that we got in comics, which is the first time we came out of the gate, we had the pressure of someone else's story on our back. And like, most people are like, oh yeah, man, I'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Take somebody else's story, follow all the guidelines, make something compelling in 3 pages. Like, that's so hard, but it was how I got into comics, which means that the hard part of templates and like measurements and filling the page and the importance of a page turn, the importance of, spacing, pacing, everything that matters, really making each panel count without overpopulating, things like that. We had those standards right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And so everything we do now automatically fits that prototype. It seemed to me like only a matter of time before we could get something going.
It's always a matter of time. Just keep working.
Yeah. Being able to being able to work on, like when we worked on Unearth, I don't know if everybody knows, but Unearth was a book that had like a 10-issue run with Image. It was written by Cullen Bunn and Kyle Strom. And as you know, Kyle was his professor and friend, and he's, you know, was one of my favorite artists and then became my friend. But he's a mentor to everyone. Like this guy, everybody's like, I don't know how to break into comics. I always send him a link to Kyle's whatnot or his Instagram or his, you know, listen to the guy. John was there, you know, well, listen to the guy. Like we have these people that we got to kind of push it together and work on stuff with, but it was like Unearth with Baldemar Rivas drawing. Like when I saw Baldemar's lines in that book, and that was his like breakout thing, right?
Yeah, he's a mentor. He actually graduated, I think a year before I got there. But I've met him, and he was a great guy. We got a great relationship. He also mentors me. I think, you know, he has seniority over me, so I view him as a mentor, and he's willing to give me advice when I need it. When every time I'm in a con, he comes over. He was like, "Hey, how's it going?" He got mad at me because I was in a con. I was tired. I was sitting down. I was talking to people, introducing myself. He said, "What are you doing, Marco? Get up, get up, introduce yourself." It's like, man, I'm tired.
I'm glad that you have people in your life that push you into that limelight too, and like having those mentors. That's where it all counts.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I got that opportunity, that Kyle came at me, I was like, "Hey, I got a gig. It's unpaid. 3 pages. Got to do it in a month." And I was like, "I'm getting right out of college." I'm like, "Hold up, what? Should I take this?" I mean, but I know it was Kyle, so I know it was serious, and he wouldn't be asking me if he knew I was serious. So I took the challenge, and I mean, I pulled like 3 all-nighters because I have a funny story. My computer actually, the battery died that month. I had to reorder one new, and some things got deleted, and I had to work a little overtime to finish it. But I finished it. So
that's fitting. That's fitting. But I mean, like, you know, your first gig out of the gate, like with comics is published by Image. That's a pretty big deal, and that is a lot of pressure. I don't know if people realize that, but that's a lot of pressure. But it's also very freeing. Like when that story was made, I'll say this, like I did a backup story for Spread. And that was like an interesting thing for me because it was about a dude taking care of a baby in a dystopian world. And I had just had a child. I don't know where she is right now, but my child Allie was a baby. She was a little baby. And so I'm like holding a baby and reading Spread. And then I get this chance to do a backup story for Kyle. And it was like, I always wondered, what did he do at night when the baby cried and like they were in the middle of the woods and like the Spread monster was everywhere. And so that was what I did. I did 3 pages of that. I worked with Ross Taylor, who was also a student at Kansas City. And it was like, or maybe he was a friend of Kyle's. I don't know. It's that art community in Kansas City is rich. So like I love diving into it. But you know, me and Ross really worked on that. We talked about creature design. We talked about different things, and it was fun. And then when I got to do Unearth and we kind of started collaborating on it a little bit, I opened up a little bit more in that. And I was like, man, I really want to stretch what we can do in this little bit. And I want to kind of play off of Marco's, you know, abilities here. And so I wrote something very personal and, you know, emotional, and it was kind of a thing. And then when you did what you did, I did what I did, it was like kismet, bro. It worked. I still get people that call me and say, hey man, aren't you the backup story guy? And I'm like, yeah, damn right. If you remember me as that, as long as you remember me, homie. But most people remember that Unearth story that we did. And it was just, that was a really cool way to break in the comics. But I can tell everything that you've been doing with Path of the Pale Rider, which if people don't understand or know, Path of the Pale Rider is another Kickstarted book that Marco is working on. They're getting into issue 3, 2 successfully funded issues. They're going to be going into issue 3. There's already an email sign up list. Go and do that and pre-back the book.
Yeah, it's a cool story. It's the concept is what happens. It's a zombie world, but the zombies are kind of initially a little bit different in the sense that it's not a virus. It's not a fungus like Last of Us, which is pretty cool. I love Last of Us. It's an amazing show. But the zombies themselves are actually people going insane. The death process has stopped, and the world has kept going. So these people that have died, their souls don't leave their body in a sense. They stayed in that world. So the deterioration happens in their body and then turn into these zombie-like creatures. And it's all about their mind. What happens to their mind as the process keeps going. But it's cool. The story is thank you guys. Thank you, Kay. But it's all about the human condition, what's going on, and this main character searches to the reason why people have stopped dying. And it's a real issue too. And it's funny that book right there, the only reason I got hired to do that book was because I was doing MAUKA. The first few pages of MAUKA, I did the scene Chinatown, and they're like, "Oh, that's perfect."
Yes, that's what we're talking about. No, well, as you were talking about it, I was just looking back at some of the stuff that Laurie's posted, and some of the things, and that's just a really encouraging person to work with. We got the chance to be on the Tuesday Morning Brew podcast with her the other day.
She also said congrats on Facebook. She saw it. She was like, congrats.
She's been really helpful.
Big help, big support. I know you and her. She said she was asking me a bunch of things that she wanted to add to her story that had the elements of what we talked about, the multiverse of Carlos. So that we'll tell you that later, as soon as we develop that a little bit more. But she's an encouraging person. I was gonna ask, should we open it up to people asking us questions? We've been talking. We should give the ability to people to ask us anything about the book or about us.
I think for the most part, like, people are just kind of floored by everything that we have to say, but we haven't said much up until tonight. So I won't make that mistake again with issue 2. But we can open it up to any questions, which, by the way, also, like, I want to point out that Kay said, congrats on making the Kickstarter goal. Like, Kay is also another gigantic inspiration, because this is a chick that was like working on cars, and now she is on a NASA project.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, dude. She is like, she trains and fights, and she, goes with her husband. They do beach days, surf, they do all this kind of stuff. She's like school, travel, apprenticeships, internships, coming and visiting here. She dubbed my son the Snuggle Nugget.
That's a good one, Snuggle Nugget.
She's just super inspiring as a person. So for her to be in here watching, like, okay, love you. But it's super cool.
Entry-level rocket science. That's amazing.
Entry-level rocket scientist. You see why? Right? Like, we shine the spotlight on Kay for a second, and she hits a dinger. Entry-level rocket scientist. I love that. But there's a lot of stuff, like, with Laurie, like that thing that she did, asking us questions, talking to us, doing whatever, working with you on your thing, just really genuinely being excited about Carlos in the Marco-verse, and
the Carlos verse. Oh, the Marco verse. I should change it. It's not gonna be my verse. it's y'all's. Carlos is y'all's creation. So, I mean, your creation. She has a character with a similar name, but I'm hoping something comes of that, man. There's something to the Marco-verse, but thanks for the rooting for me.
having her kind of ask questions from another creator standpoint was really cool too. I keep trying to link John to get in. I don't know a better way to do it. So Laurie, if you know a better way, can you, like, let us know? because I want to get John in here, because like you want to talk about a dude that'll smack you in the face with a spatula of inspiration. It's this guy.
I mean, isn't he in the stream watching? Can you just send him an invite to join, or just send him the link you sent? Send him the link that you sent me earlier.
I did, but it's coming across as an attachment. I don't know, man. If you have Safari, you might need to use Safari. Man, I'm still looking at this Kickstarter thing, and I'm really stoked about it. Everybody, thank you really a lot. And if anybody wants to ask us any cool questions, feel free to do so. Like, I'm pretty much an open book. I would say I've got about another hour to burn, so we can get through this. There's also some stuff I want to show a little bit later on, but I know that it'll be probably cool to share the screen after we've answered some questions, and hopefully we can get
and
talk about some stuff.
I haven't even talked about the schedule. I don't know how many people signed up for the sketchbook, but it's pretty cool. Like the one that comes attached, which I've been sketching a lot these days, so it would be cool to create this book so y'all can see, well, my drawings and my all the drawings I've come up with these last 2 years. As weird as just like trying to figure out myself, and it's cool to see that made, because that's like the number one ask is when I go to cons and everything. They ask me. It's surprise. I'm getting it slowly, but people love my sketch work sometimes better than my actual work, and it's pretty cool. I always doubted my ability to sketch. I think that's what's surprising to me. It's like when I started sketching, it's always been like, oh man, I think I'm sketching too basic. It's nothing important. I've been seeing other people's sketchbooks, and then so it's cool to see how my skill has developed in this sketchbook, and people are taking way more interest. Like in Instagram, when I go do a story, I tested it out. I tested out on the final piece I was doing. It didn't get attention. I sketched for like 30 seconds. I mean, I do a quick clip of 30 seconds, and people are just like in awe of like what I can do in my sketchbook. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh man, like the Marco Defillo art Instagram with underscores. Check that out. Go and look. There's a you sketch and Koa.
Oh yeah, I can show it on here. I have my sketchbook right next to me. I was actually sketching. Yeah, I told you, I was like, I'm gonna do a cool Koa sketch. I mean, I'm gonna do it. So
man, that is beautiful, dude.
So
96792, baby. Just letting everybody know. 96792, and that's also inspired that thing on Koa's chest, man. It's I don't know. I think I told you a little bit about why that's so important to have there, because there was a guy that he was like going through kidney failure, and like he was a fighter, and basically his whole future was taken away from him, and he was a coach, and like I don't think a lot of people know this, but like that dude literally suffered for it. Like he suffered for the love of everything. And he had 96792 tattooed on him. And every time I think about like a really solid dude from the West Side, I think about this guy. He's actually the owner of Bang for Bang. And they are giving us a really good deal on some custom boxing gloves, which is cool because Marco is going to get to help us design some boxing gloves, and that's going to be neat. But having Koa kind of take the form and the passion, like you really put a lot into Koa, and I love that.
Oh yeah, I think that we're having that conversation about respecting the coach and all that. I really wanted to get that because this is another link that I like connected to Puerto Rico. The tattoos that the Polynesians put on their arm, they're all representative of what the natives saw, and they, these are tied to their religion, to who they are as a people. In Puerto Rico, the natives, the Tainos, that's what they were called before. Well, before they were. Right now, their culture is no more. The people either have got mixed in to the cultures that have already mixed in Puerto Rico, which is like black, white, because that's the center of the Pirate Age, the first republic, free republic. So a lot of people went into this, and they're all mixture. But there's the symbolism of the tattoos too. Like an important animal in our culture is called the koki. It's a frog that does not leave. Well, before now apparently it's traveled to places like Hawaii,
It is
and all that.
it is a
Yeah.
pain in the ass in Hawaii
Okay.
because it's
See, that is
invasive.
the weirdest thing. I was born with the music of the koki, and then that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard when I was being raised, and that's we take pride in that. Like at night, the way I know Puerto Rico is you go outside and you hear the koki, and it's like for us it's soothing. It's like the most. It's because we were raised in it. It's part of our culture, you know.
Well, and even I say that it's a pain in the butt, but the reason I say it's a pain in the ass is because I'm from Oahu, where the koki is not there. You know,
Yeah,
like it is on Kauai or the Big Island or wherever it has pushed to. But like we have the geckos and the we have the geckos,
thank you for
and
the
then
support and the prayer to Kay. She's
and
leaving the chat.
oh, take it easy, Kay. Love you. But and we also have the sound of the B-52s, the flying cockroaches. Like
Yeah,
you're just walking through the dark and you hear it's not fun. But it's part of, you know, it's part of like being there.
yeah, and that's the thing I was saying. Like, so and I've heard these stories of like the koki being in trouble because before all this, like someone I don't know why they wanted to travel with the koki to another place. It's I don't understand why people do that. Just leave leave their environment, like the what's it called, where they live, their habitat alone. But it's like so you'll see these markings like Polynesians do of tattoos of these koki characters and all that. So when I saw that you want to do something Polynesian, I respected that so much. I had to try to get inspiration, and I looked through all these images, and then I I know I'm not there yet in the tattoo, like the tattoos, but I wanted to get representations. That's why when I drew Koa, I made sure to like the symbolism on the shoulder. I wanted to make sure it represented like the sea, the sun, and like the waves. You know, that's always important. Like I think most islanders respect like the sun. The sun is like the number one thing that's tied to most of the cultures.
Yeah. And for Hawaii, it's like, you know, just the sky in general,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like the sun, what it brings, the moon, the stars, you know, like, you know, basically founding nautical navigation, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
through using the stars. Like that whole deal is such a crazy thing to be able to compact into these cool tattoos. If you want to look at a really sick tattoo artist that has like the some of the greatest, you know, Polynesian tribal is Paulo Manabe, I believe is his name. And he tattoos in Honolulu. I've been able to go and like watch him tattoo in person. And we were doing a shoot for a t-shirt for Poly Love,
Mm.
which was a brand in Hawaii. It was Philly. Nice to, you know, hopefully people more check it out. But there was an image of a girl with a tattoo on her chin, you know, like the facial tattoo, and Paulo like kind of painted it on there, right? Um looking at some of his stuff with that and seeing that like just it looks like a little just a little swoosh in the, you know, like a little rocker, a little wave, a little something. It all means something. It's like these are, you know, so much attention and so much meaning in that kind of stuff. For you to be able to kind of put that on the arm of a dude that you're going to be drawing in a million different ways and all that kind of stuff, I don't think people understand the dedication.
Yeah, I think the hardest. I think I'm gonna have to draw him, and then when I finish the book, then come back and focus on just that.
If
Because
you get good enough, you can always move to Hawaii and draw Polynesian tribal, design Polynesian tribal tattoos.
that's a lot of work. I respect anyone that does that. The attention to detail, and it can be messy. That's the thing. It has to be all.
Precise.
It's precise and patience. I'm I think I'm just too when I work, I've noticed it. I slow down sometimes. I work too fast. I
Yeah.
start moving too fast and I have to go back because then I start seeing something doesn't work. I have to go back. So I don't know. That I'm gonna have a lot of patience with Koa and future representations that you bring in. I'm gonna have to see what I do.
Yeah, I've always found that like one of the best things to do is to just draw the tattoo in like a few different angles, and then just be able to pull that in and wrap it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. I think I'm gonna have to.
but you're still having to draw the same tattoo from like 5-6 different angles, and you're still having to make it like land just right, because if you skew it and it messes, you're just as attention to detail as I would be.
But I'm also going to work, so I learned to work better with contracts with shadows, so I'll play tricks sometimes.
Smart move.
But no, I think since we got the book funded, I can say that the first few weeks we were finalizing everything. I'm gonna go over the characters again and nail everything down, like make sure that we have everything that we want for the story down. Get Koa and Carlos down to the point so that we move forward. Get the story out and see these. I'm gonna draw like the tattoos, different faces, and I think you're gonna enjoy the new things I'm bringing in, because I've been sketching a lot. I've been sketching a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And honestly, to bring it all back, if we can get another $500 on the project, I'll give a sketchbook to everybody. We'll give one of Marco's sketchbooks to everybody, because that's I think that's another thing about the project that people don't realize is it's not just fulfillment. It's also being able to bring this book to conventions, being able to, sell it, get it out, being able to like go out into the world and
it's
be able to.
It's my first art book. There you go. My first art book. It'll be, you can own one of the first editions of one of my first sketchbooks. And I don't know how we're going to work this, but I'm going to try to get them signed and send them out. Since we live in 2 different states, we're gonna have to communicate how we're gonna do this.
There's already a lot of stuff that we have to do, because like Justin Greenwood, who did his cover, he donated the original art, and Mike Petrowski actually was the guy that backed that. Mike's actually also an author, and I feel like a jackass because the name of his book is escaping my memory right now. It has something to do with a minotaur, but it was actually a really complex book, and I grew up with this guy, and he's from New York, and he moved down here to South Carolina, and kind of like he purchased that art. I'm gonna have to get that art, get the Justin Greenwood cover signed by Justin, get the Conley cover signed by Conley, get the John Rauch cover signed by John. We're gonna get all this stuff out. That's why we kind of put a July deadline on getting the book out. Well, we're pretty sure that it'll get there before then, but we're hoping. That'll give us time.
All this training I've learned from these past doing indie comics is give me I can get a good book done in probably a month, drawing all the pages and coloring. Probably give me like 2 weeks after that month, 3 to get colored. I'm not as fast as most people. I know people can probably do it even faster than that, but
and a lot of people don't know this, but we talked about John Rauch a lot, but he's actually been donating a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of art to this process. And he's gonna kind of jump in, like getting this thing funded and being able to progress in this is giving us time. Like, John's gonna jump in and help you with the color, and we're gonna do
that'll be an honor.
We're gonna do a thing where we're learning too, guys. We're learning too. Like John's going to show Marco some things with color that work well in the industry. And I'm getting tips and things from other people. Like even Lori, man, I spoke to her. I feel like an asshole because like, I didn't even pay attention as much as I wanted to y'all's project. But I think everybody knew that like there were things in the way. And then when I finally got to talk to her and talk about you guys' project and what stood out to me, and she talks to me, I'm learning things about Kickstarter. I'm learning things about lettering and comics in general from Lori too. Bringing all these people in are just going to sharpen us.
Oh yeah. And we accept any new support on Pepera, so you don't have to feel like that. And she doesn't feel like that. She she's excited. The book is a big success. Luckily, it got picked up by Pastime Comics, is like the local publisher in Fort Worth. So everything's going well with that book. So she enjoys she loves to have conversation with other writers. She's like you. She's very sociable. She does it too. She meets someone and makes a great relationship. I think she was happy that you guys finally meet, because I always sing y'all's praises when I talk. I talked about y'all. So it's finally like a finally meeting, and then when she asked me, all these questions about like your characters and her story, I was like, Lori, just send him a message. I think he will respond to you. He loves to talk. So
he nailed it. Yes, I do.
So I'm happy I connected y'all. And
we're gonna great.
And hey, MAUKA's gonna be successful too. Don't worry about it, man.
Honestly, I feel like now that I know that the book is getting backed, and I finally get to breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh man, finally I can stop feeling bad about Koa only being known.
Day. Don't do that yet. We still have 1 day.
I'm just saying, like now I know that Koa will be known for more than just broken moke ass English in the first few pages. That is like the number one thing. People are like, bro, why is he so moke? Because people are moke. Because that's what it is, and he's that guy. But he's very insightful, and I think that like it's one of those things that finally, I think people are going to get to see Koa in a situation where he doesn't feel guarded. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't feel like he's not trying to set Carlos off. Like when we get into more like less tense situations with Koa, I mean, like in what we've seen so far, he rolls up on a dude with a smashed face and then witnesses another dude get curb stomped.
And that's just the first few scenes in this book.
Yeah. Yeah. We get to see something different through him. So I'm happy that gets to be flushed out. I'm relieved that I'm relieved right now that there gets to be like we get to meet Perla. We get to meet some of these other characters. Like there's another character that, and I think from reading the script of the first one, there's a pretty strong female character coming into the picture that we're gonna meet her in this issue, but like it goes much deeper. We get to represent something that I think a lot of people don't realize, which is back in the day in Hawaii and in a lot of culture in Hawaii, like there's no difference between a man and a woman doing a job or taking control or making decisions. There's no difference. It is not even a thing. So getting to see some of our female characters, getting to see some of the interactions between some of the different people and your take on it, and dude, I'm just stoked right now.
Yeah, man, you should be. It's a story you've been trying to get out. I'm trying to do like become a writer so I can write my own stories. So, but I bet it feels amazing that you finally get your story out of your mind and you're really to tell it to other people. That's something that's a feeling I haven't experienced yet, but I want to experience it. So and it must feel phenomenal, man.
It feels pretty good right now. I'm not gonna lie, but like there's a few things. I've had some stuff. I got to work on some stuff with a guy from Guam, an artist from Guam, and like in some of my early comic stuff, I did a horror anthology that was headed up by Russ Wooten. And if anybody doesn't know, Russ, just kind of like John has colored everything, Russ has lettered everything. And he's an artist and a writer and all these things too. So he supports early comic book aspirations. And he gave me and this artist Sonny Chargaloff from Guam, we got to do a story in his horror anthology where I wrote a story about like my home area in South Carolina, and I got to do it with an all Pacific Island creative crew. So it was me and Sonny, and he was from Guam, and then Canilla Tripp, who's like a freaking legend in comics anyway. And he lives in Hawaii, helps artists in Hawaii. He's a part of the Comic Jam group that I'm a part of over there. And he did that as a favor, I'm sure, to Russ, because I didn't know him at the time. So that was super cool. But getting to work with all these people and do all these things, man, like seeing where everybody comes from, piecing all this stuff together, going through the steps, it just blows my mind at like how small the margin is of a story being wildly successful or just never being made. Does that ever blow your mind? Have you seen some of the stuff in Baldamar's book and been like, bro, you need to do this? And he's just like, oh, it's just a thing that I do. You know, like I've seen entire books that Kyle Strahm has done where I'm like, why is this not a thing? And I don't know.
I mean, I feel like working on my sketchbook for a while now. I get it. I mean, it's like, oh, it's an awesome idea. I don't know if I'm inspired to do more with it. It's just something I wanted to draw.
Oh man, speaking of earlier when I was talking about the baby, this and I'll tell you how long ago it was when I did my first backup story for Spread with Kyle. This thing was like months old. So
you mean your princess, bro? That's your princess.
Now she's 9.
There goes the other princess.
Yeah. Come here, Aaliyah. I can show you off. This is my oldest daughter, Aaliyah, who is an inspiration for a lot of whimsical things in things that I write, and also extremely frustrating. Like that's the thing about kids, dude. I love them to death, but I also I want to squeeze them because I love them, and I want to squeeze them so they'll be quiet. Well, this one is a little me, and she runs her mouth constantly just to hear herself talk. And I taught her that, so I'm hoping that pays off in life. And this one is an entrepreneur. If anybody on Facebook is interested in nice baked goods, this kid does like chocolate dipped Oreos and like peppermint hot chocolate cookies and all this kind of stuff. She has her own business, so nice. It's a thing. It's a thing. Anyway, so say hi. I had to bring them into it because they were forcing their way into it. So go. Get. These are my children. She was comfortable, she says. Anyway, you'll see some of the inspiration that they give me in some of the parts of the book. I think that's another thing too, like the mysterious piece of Carlos. Since nobody's asking, I'll put it out there. One of the mysterious things about Carlos here is that obviously he is not from Hawaii, but he lives there and has lived there for a while. But there are other things we don't know about him. But obviously in the preview, he's asking questions about his family. You know, being a dad, being separated from your children, going through things like that is a really hard thing. And there's a lot of reasons why those things happen. But you know, it's something that we go through with Carlos in this story, which is he's looking for his family, his children, you know, some of the people that he has lost at some point. And it's a very strong motivating factor, even to the point where he risks other people's safety. And that's something that Koa is there to rein in. But like you can understand and you can see anybody's that had kids and been a creator, you know, it's really easy to put some of that fear into your stories. So it's not always easy to write stuff like that because I have to think about it. But it is definitely part of it. So there's a lot of inspiration there with little Miss Big Head here and her sister and even my son.
I got a big brain.
Yeah, you got a big brain. Okay. That's enough, kids. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have fun. Okay. I'm biting my tongue on this one. But yeah, dude, like and there's a lot of things that people kind of don't even know to ask yet about this book, but we're just gonna have fun, right? There's complex storylines, there's cool character designs, there's cool character development, there's representation of things, but there's also, and I want to keep everybody, you know, thinking about this, it's a comic book. So we're also just going to do stuff because it's fun. Like I've been thinking about some fight scenes. I've been thinking about some combat. I've been thinking about a lot of this stuff, and finding a new way to do that, finding a interesting and cool way to portray those scenes. I can't wait to collaborate with you on some of this stuff. We get to just have fun fight scenes. We've already had a guy get curb stomped by a handmade half traditional Hawaiian weapon, half
scraps. I think it was like scrap versus wood. Like he was a welder at one point. He welded these things together. There's cool. I'm excited to bring more of these scrap welders because I think the cool aspect is that since he's a welder, he invented some of these weapons, so you can see his personality come out some of these weapons.
Yeah,
well, I guess my personality because I.
Well, that's the part of it that's cool. Like when I pitched the curb stomp idea, you were like, neat, let's do this. You know, like being able to kind of reach those recesses and do those things is fun, man. And it's comics. You get to do whatever you want. Like we can make some very interesting things, and we're going to. I really can't wait, dude. Marco has a page full of just weapon designs that we were kind of like looking at the other day, on the podcast, and it's super neat. There's a spear gun. I will never forget the spear gun aspect of the thing because
you were like, hey, I want you to do a spear gun. I was like, oh, okay. So I do the spear gun. I don't know where the page is. Yeah,
it's all good.
I would have to look through all the pages of sketches that are here. So I have I have to go through all that now, you guys, so I can show you more sketches. I'll probably put it in the sketchbook. I'll make that a promise. I'll find the page and I'll put it inside the sketchbook.
Ina Kava'a says hello, aloha. What's up, Ina? Ina's like another huge supporter, and her husband Kaeo is actually my brother and in spirit, and he's like Koa to me in real life.
Oh, there you go. There goes the inspiration.
His name's Kaeo, and I named my son after him, and the lineage that he comes from, which is Kaeo Kulani, who was Kamehameha's uncle, and Kamehameha united the islands, but people don't really realize that, you know, that was kind of the beginning of the Western culture taking over. But Kaeo Kulani was one of the people that lasted a while fighting against him. But I named my son after Kaeo, who was named after that. So like already people can kind of see that like this, it's not bullshit. It means a lot. It means a lot. And honestly, Kaeo writes, he loves comics. He almost died at one point in time. He got hit by a car, and I watched this dude like come back from not being able to walk and just kind of like will himself back. Then he starts like bodybuilding, and he was a fighter. And dude, the guy does everything, and he's always the nicest dude ever. So having Ina and Kaeo here, what's up? I love you guys. I'm hoping that I can do people like them proud. You know, do you have any people like that, like in your life, where you're like, man, I hope I do them proud in what I'm doing?
Yeah, of course. A couple of buddies of mine, but I haven't thought of a story to put them in, in a sense. You know, I wish I had that connection. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm kind of jealous that you have this ability to. I'm pretty sure I have the ability. I'm gonna have to observe. I have to just improve my writing skills. But you have these deep. You take connections so deep that they transcend more than what they are, like, more than their friendships. You know.
I appreciate that.
And I have to learn how to verbally communicate that. I think that's my weaker side. I gotta communicate how relationships mean to me and how I can translate to stories as well.
I think it would be a good time to visit Puerto Rico again. Because
I'm going back soon. I gotta visit my dad.
yeah, go back
my
and
and my
visit
and my
because
grandpa.
like I mean, I grew up at a place here where it's like you don't hug each other and tell dudes don't, you know, hug and say they love each other, but like every single time I see Kaio, I get embraced. And it's like, I love you, brother. I love you. You know, like, and it's just like one of those things where it's like, I honestly feel loved.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also just a very island vibe, you know? Because that's what I'm getting from you, and that's when I was raised in Puerto Rico. It was very much like that. It's like when you say hi to someone, you give them a hug, you give a kiss, and even if they're not family too, sometimes.
And family has a definite different meaning.
Yeah.
You know, family has a different meaning. Like honestly, I always say, and this fucking sucks. I really hate to say this out loud, but I'm gonna say it because I think people already know it. I have relatives here on the continental United States, but I have family in Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like these are people that I have family here too, but I'm just saying, like, if people want to stack it up and count it, I've got more relatives here than I have family, and I have more family there than I have relatives. And it's one of those things where, you know, you go through things together. There was a tsunami warning in 2010, and everybody laughs and makes jokes and all kinds of shit now. But back then, dude, we thought we were going to get hit with a fucking tsunami. And so, like, everybody on that island becomes equal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a unique feeling. That gives you a perspective on the human condition, because not only do you see the heights that it could reach, you see how fast it deteriorates, because as soon as they say, oh, no big deal, it was a false alarm, everybody goes back to whatever the shit they were worried about before. But you get to see the contrast. You know, you say you play with shadows and lighting and stuff like that. Well, I do too. You know, it's just the shadow of what could be.
Yeah. You play it a different way. It's on in the comments. You might know him. I know, but thank you for telling me my art is amazing.
That's Kaeo. That's Kaeo.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool.
Kaeo Kulani Kawa'a.
I'm gonna have to learn.
That honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Like when I became such good friends with Kaio, I was like, why do I have to have a friend with such a hard stop, like such a Okina in the name, the Kaio? But like honestly, I learned more from Kaio than anybody else. And
well, I mean, I'll get it eventually, man. Spanish was my first language. English was second. You know, I'll get it down. I'll get that the letter.
Hey, you know what? Honestly, like if we're doing this right, then hopefully you will make Hawaiian your third. Like I hope that you dive into it the way that I'm trying to dive into it, because it's really hard to like learn a language, especially when the language is everything. And so like if you butcher the Hawaiian language, I mean, most people may or may not care. I really don't know, but I know that honestly, deep down in the heart, like that is the key to everything in the Hawaiian culture is the language. So having Kaeo there to teach me stuff is cool, and I will definitely link you guys up so that way you can hear. If you think I'm passionate, you have to hear this dude.
There you go. He gets your inspiration. Maybe when we make the book and officially send it out, you do another live stream and you bring him in and talk about the inspiration for Koa. I think that would be a good good way to introduce more of the character to those people that don't know and are about to read the book.
And if there were ever a chance that we had like a Mormon offshoot, because there's people don't know this, but like being a Mormon in Hawaii is like it's pretty standard. So like I've never met a Mormon in my life until I moved to Hawaii, and it was like honestly I had just left like a Mormon function, and I was like talking to Kaio, and I was like, what is this? And it dawned on me that they were all Mormon. But like if we ever decide to look into that and actually speak to that in any sense, that's a dude we're going to need to talk to, because like when you think of Mormons, like the Brigham Young, if anybody's ever looked into the history and Brigham Young, the dude successfully waged war against the United States. Successfully. Like defended his people, did all this stuff. Whether they were right or wrong, that's I don't really do the religion thing, but like learning that kind of stuff, the actual facts about it, the history, what it means, the stories, how it moves people. Kaio's done a lot of that for me. And that's why the book I feel is really important to make, because some of these things that have inspired me so much in my life as to, pursue this, it comes from those stories. It comes from the ways that people connect and say things. So, anytime there's an opportunity, I'll tell you this for writing for yourself and for any of I've seen your art and things like that for some of your stories and some character ideas and things like that. When you start putting those like heart and soul pieces as to what makes them humans and how they got there, man, it just takes a whole new. It takes a whole new in.
That's why I think that's one of the main things. I've taken a little slow in some of my stories, because I want to get the human aspect of it. I know I might hop into one of my older stories. It was one that I developed right in college. The aspect was bringing in the character's feelings into it. I think I was talking to Laura about it. It's like the reason I walked away from the story is when I did it in college, but I did the story just to do a story, but I didn't really concentrate on the character. And now I thought about it for 2 years. I have now a reason for the character to do so. I think, I like you're saying, I'm focusing on like the emotions of the character. Why is the reasons the character is doing there? So, I mean, and all that's just because I've been absorbing a lot of these writing tips that you guys have been doing. So yeah, and I do agree. The character has to be more than just like I have to do this, to do that, to do this, and that's why sometimes, um, that's why I think I looked at about the Pathful Rider. The thing that stuck out between her and a lot of indie comics is that there's a lot of focus on the characters themselves as a people, and I think that's what you're doing too with some of these characters. Um, yeah, I'm just learning from that. That's basically I'm absorbing that aspect of storytelling. It's just like write the story about people more so, and then the grander story, make a cool story, but at the same time, it's about the character.
That was honestly something that John Rauch taught me very early on, and it was stop trying to make this or trying to make that. Just make something cool. Like it can be that simple. Just make something cool. Like just make something you think is great. The meaning finds a way, man. The meaning really does find a way. Like you can just start in a very broad place and bring it down and become, I don't know. I think Marco dropped off there for a second. But either way, you can do a lot of stuff, man. You can start with a broad idea and you can create something much larger. Since Marco kind of dropped out for a second, hopefully he can click on that link and get back in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our video that we did, it's like a minute long, and I'm going to see if I can post it up on here, and maybe anybody who's still thinking about it can take a look.
Imagine living on the beautiful island of Hawaii, the bustling business, the beautiful scenery, but then everything just stops. No more power, water, cell phones, or communication from anywhere else in the world. The Western civilization that's so rooted here now just descends into chaos. Planes fall from the sky, and eventually a new way of life has to be formed. In this book, we follow Carlos, who's an off-island guy who's looking for his family, and Koa, a West Side boy who tries to keep peace between all of the tribes, but the two find themselves in the middle of a tribal war. When there's danger all around, the safest place is the high ground, towards the mountains. MAUKA.
All right. So cool. We got to see that. I'm gonna try to get Marco back in here for the last little bit of this thing. Yeah, I'm stoked. We got it. We made it. So now I kind of feel like it's time that we can kind of talk about some other projects that are interesting to us. If anybody wants to jump on the stream and talk, man, honestly, send me a message, shoot me a text. We'll see if we can get you in and have some discussion with somebody other than just me talking. That would be great. I'm going to go ahead and send this through to Marco and see what we can get going. But yeah, seriously, everybody, thanks for backing. MAUKA's a big deal. We got Marco back. There we go.
I'm back. I'm sorry. I clicked the X by accident. Oh, I was clicking something on the screen. I clicked the X, and I'm like, oh, did I just click myself?
That's okay. So Kaio said he picked John's variant. He's stoked to see what he does. He's a huge fan of his work as well. Like, for people that don't know, John has like done everything ever. And people that know me know, like, one of my favorite books of all time is Invincible, because it was kind of like it made fun of every single trope in superhero comics, but it did it in such a way, like, people don't realize I was a teenager or early 20s teenager when I picked up Invincible, and I grew up with Mark Grayson. I even had a child at the same time he had a child. So, like, being able to relate to a character like that, John's colors on Invincible made it extremely good for me. I'll say that. It was very satisfying. And so that was where I reached out to John, and I literally was just like, hey man, you work on my favorite book. Do you want to work with me on some things? He colored a pitch that I made with Nelson Blake called World Breaker, which was loosely based on Russell Doan, UFC fighter, children's book author, entrepreneur. Yeah, John helped me out, but it was just kind of reaching out to people that I appreciated their work, you know. That's kind of a thing. That's really all it is. I'm hoping that some people will decide to reach out to us someday and ask those questions. And I would be tickled pink, man. Like, I would honestly, I don't think I would believe it if it ever happened. What you working on, homie?
Oh, it's a client work. I just have to color it. It's just character design. That's what I'm going to be working on next. I was trying just to set something up real quick.
No, it's all good. It's all good. That's kind of part of what I want to talk about in the later stages of this thing is, what are some of your favorite projects that you follow? Be it indie comics or regular comics, like, what are your things?
Honestly, for me, I just don't particularly choose one thing. I think there's a couple. On the aspect story-wise, I'll pick up any issue. But I'm mostly focused on the art-wise. When I see someone's art, and I think it's amazing. I think Jorge Ramirez, when I think I said his last name correctly. He works on like Batman. He's very famous. He's from, I think, Brazil or something. Ramirez art. He works on a lot of Batman stuff. I love his art. I love just breaking it down, analyzing it. Mostly self-improvement. But I've also been getting into a lot of his Super Sons type artwork that he's been doing. I think I really want to. I haven't picked up any Super Sons comics. I wanted to get into it. A lot of small projects. I want to pick up a lot of things that I've been seeing. I think there was one called Magic Order that I wanted to check out. Honestly, I am a sucker for anything sci-fi and magic. So if you pop that up in my face, I'm gonna look at it. I want to look into it.
Yeah, there was that aspect at one point in time where we were, toying with the magic and the mythology aspect of all things. And
I'm kind of happy we moved away from that, because I think that would have perceived a lot of problems. Yeah,
that's pressure, bro. But like, it is fun. It is fun to explore, right? Like, imagine creating your own mythology.
Yeah,
that would be a thing. But
I mean, I've already created the mythology from some of my stories. I just have to write them. But it'll be cool since I know some of the mythology in Puerto Rico too. We can explore that, but that's probably in the future projects. I was, but I think if we would have gone the route of like, hold on, Eddie, meeting you right before my accident was a big inspiration that helped me through recovery. Oh, there you go, bro. It's for you. It's for you.
Yeah. Kaya was telling me talking about that whole process. Honestly, was it was a time where an extremely active guy has to be, pretty stationary. He kind of came along for the ride with me on some of the pitches that I was going through, and he was actually there for the inception of MAUKA when it was entirely different and it was more of a revenge story, and it was coming from a dark place.
Of that, the grittiness of the revenge story is still in there.
Yeah.
But going back to, I think,
if
we went the mythology path, because you were thinking of this Calvers. If we ever do that, I think it would be necessary to bring in a Hawaiian native who will, look into it, and then we, he'll know most of the culture, and it'll be his culture to explore. I mean, because I think for us to get that right, we need someone who understands it, who will do it more justice and give it more respect. You
get a cultural representation, rather than a perspective type representation.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're presenting my perspective, our perspectives, outside perspectives on something real, but that would actually be a cultural representation rather than a perspective of something that is very real as a cultural tool, as a learning tool, as a religious thing, and spiritual and connection wise. So I see what you're talking about. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight. But I mean, if you want to do a Puerto Rico with the mythology there, I got you. I mean, not a lot of people have explored it. I got you.
And I wouldn't rule that out. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like, we've encapsulated our story in a bubble.
Yeah.
If the world ended and you were on the most isolated chain of islands in the world, you really would have no idea what was going on. Mm-hmm. So there's no way that our characters can speak on what's happening in the rest of the world. There may be a time where there's maybe a variation based in Puerto Rico of what's going on. That would be cool.
That would be pretty cool too.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, like, is this going to be an ongoing series? And I think every comic book artist and writer dreams of having that one ongoing series that defines their life. But that's just kind of not the way that things go down anymore. I think that having a limited series and allowing people with creative minds to expand on that themselves, it's kind of like the Sopranos finale. Everybody was really pissed off about that, but only because it challenged you to think about it and come to your own conclusion. Yeah. So we might Sopranos this whole thing, but MAUKA is only the first part of this story. The second part, I think, if anybody is from the islands, they understand there's MAUKA and Makai towards the mountains, towards the water, and Makai would be the second aspect of this story. And I can't wait to get to that part. I can't wait. Like, I really want to savor everything we're doing, but I can't wait to get to the end of MAUKA, to the beginning of Makai.
I'm going to tell you what I tell Lori, one step at a time. Because Lori has the same thing. She has everything perceived to she has 3 volumes already written, bro. I was like, we have to go step by step. We'll get there eventually. Patience.
That's where writers fail. Where writers fail. People always try to push their ideas without writing the book. Nelson Blake told me a long time ago, when I gave him the most horrible script on the face of the planet for Worldbreaker, Nelson Blake told me, if you haven't sat down and written this book all the way to the end, then I don't know what we're doing here. And that kind of opened it up for me. So sometimes you got to sit down and write the whole thing. And I applaud people that can, because I've got 1,000 stories in my head, and it's really hard to get to the end. The beginning is actually the hard part. I always say start at the end, work your way back. But the beginning is definitely hard.
What was your friend's name? I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Ka'eo. So it's like ka,
okay,
and then a
Kyle.
hard stop.
We
and
were
then
talking
eo.
about that about the Puerto Ricans and Hawaiian culture early on. You were on. I was explaining the same thing too. It was like, I like coming from Puerto Rico. I don't understand completely like Hawaiian culture as the ideology. I completely understand it, but I understand the idea of of being an islander. How the idea of being native to it and having like other people coming into it. Like it's a very being an islander, like being Puerto Rico, very friendly to each other. We love each other. We're very like the concept of being neighborly is very big, and I'm pretty sure that's big over there. And I think that's just an island thing. We say hi to each other and then come across the street. And we were very proud people. I've noticed that the smaller the place is, the bigger heart we are. Like,
yeah, well, because everybody's like, we don't say ma'am and sir. Like when I grew up, if I didn't say ma'am or sir to everybody, I would get smacked in the face. When I got to Hawaii, if I said ma'am or sir instead of auntie or uncle, it was like it was disrespect. Like, what do you mean I'm not family?
And that's why I think that the ideology of Hawaii and Puerto Rico, I think that's when I'm drawing, I understand the importance of that ideology and respect for the culture. Because myself in Puerto Rico, I don't want no one to misrepresent me. It's like I was born on a beautiful small island, with rich traditions and all that, and I think that's where it comes in. Is like doing the story, I kind of find kind of cool. That's sorry, I got distracted reading the comic. And then the aspect of like studying about the culture, the native culture too, like what I was telling earlier, the Taino people, which don't exist unfortunately. That's what I'm kind of jealous of Hawaii. Hawaii has that rich culture of like one source of being that you can get from. We don't understand the culture like the native culture at all, but we get like fragments of it. But we're proud of what we know so far. So I agree. There's a lot of parallels between Hawaii and Puerto Rico, and I think it's just an island culture thing. I think if you go even to Cuba or something like that, you'll see that the same thing.
Something that I saw a long time ago, and people always ask like all these questions, and I don't have the answers at the time. But when I have time to think about it, or if it triggers, I watched a movie called Kon-Tiki about it was like some type of European guy who had a theory of the Polynesian people actually coming from Peru, because they found the tiki in Peru that matched, and so he went on a voyage from Peru to French Polynesia on a raft made from materials he would have found at the time, and he made it. So it was entirely feasible that it happened. They actually disproved it, but like just that thought process of these things are so similar and came so far apart, the fact that they disproved it makes it even more mind-blowing to me that we have all these things in common in all these different places,
Yeah. So we got in the comments, your buddy will be honored to join the stream, and then World Breaker. Oh, well,
that was me.
Oh yeah.
So World Breaker was my old book. I had a page for it.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about, I don't know why. I just like
with a bunch of people. So like I decided to just like change direction on the World Breaker page and just start posting updates about MAUKA, because I don't really know how to explain to people that World Breaker's dead for the moment. As a matter of fact, I was going to show some of that. If you have some art you want to show, I want to do that, because I want to show people some of my stuff from past projects really quick. Let me see if I can get it in here. And I'm going to yell at my children really quick. Hey, girls, you are getting out of hand, man. You think I'm not watching? The peripheral is happening, man. If anybody sees me clenching my jaw, it's because they're acting a damn fool over here. But hey, man,
they're being kids.
Exactly. If they weren't doing that, I'd be worried. But all right, I'm going to jump. Let's see if I can do this here. All right, cool. Let's share this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a website that I created a while back. And I got our Unearthed story in here, Unsettled. There's There's the original Carlos. I want to say one of the aspects that really drew me to it was just this first panel. The clinching, you can see the tears and you can't even see his eyes. You know what I mean? That's beautiful, man. And here's Worldbreaker. This is a book that I did with Nelson Blake, John, Rico Renzi colored the cover. John colored the interiors. Russ Wooten lettered it for me. But this was a story about a dude kind of plucked from like an earthly scenario. I called it, it was like my homage to Invincible. Invincible's deal is he's invincible. Ronan is the character in this book, and his deal is he is not invincible. He is extremely vincible. So putting him into a situation where he could very well die. As a matter of fact, he even gets hit with a spear here in like the guts, and it's like all of these nearly invincible people are basically like, wow, dude, what's your deal? But that was something I explored there. More science fiction-y, more.
That would be fun to bring back, man.
It was actually one of the things that I thought about reworking and maybe having your input on that. So we'll talk about that later. This was actually my first thing with Spread. Issue 13. Honestly, it was an issue where the colorist, Felipe Sobrero, he got to do the interiors and stuff like that. And then me and Ross Taylor did the backup. Ross did a killer job, man. Basically, working with Kyle's characters was hard, but we did a great job creating a cool monster. You got the baby. I actually lettered this way better than I lettered the preview of MAUKA. I'm letting everybody know that'll be fixed. Here's the story that I did for The Dark Reaches, Russ Wooten's book anthology. If you look really hard, it says Lake Hartwell. That is the lake in South Carolina that I'm next to. There's a lot of Bassmaster classics held there. Again, I got to work with Sonny Chargaloff from Guam, and he's not only is he a great comic book guy, but he also too came from the world of MMA, except he was actually a coach. He coaches fighters in the UFC and kickboxers that go around the world, and it was cool to have somebody that really understood the dynamic that I have there. And then also I did this with Sonny. It's a story about an MMA fighter. It's called The Struggle, because everybody's like, the struggle's real. Basically, imagine a guy on like an Ultimate Fighter series or like a 30 for 30 documentary, and he's talking about his journey, his struggle getting there, and it's loosely based off of a few people that I got to witness their struggle. But that was a fun book to do because it comes straight from my world. Yeah. I also did a line of comics, or I wanted to do a line of comics about fight teams in Hawaii, because I felt like each of them had a big story to tell. And this one is actually modeled after actual people. Rachel Ostovich, Robbie Ostovich, the Jesus is Lord team, which is like one of the founding teams of the sport of MMA. And I don't think people realize that, but MMA was kind of bred in Hawaii, and Jesus is Lord was always there. They were always there. And we have a lot of real people, real stories, real things that happen. So it was cool. I kind of went more from a reporter aspect to drifting a little further into the fictional, and then drifting a lot further into the fictional. And then you can see kind of how the career progressed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have MAUKA, and I'm so freaking stoked to be able to show this whole thing to everybody. But also Unearth, if you have a chance, go pick that up. So yeah, man, that's some stuff that I wanted to kind of show. If you have anything you want to throw up there, man, just let me know.
I was gonna tell you, just look up my website there. You can see.
Okay, good. Let me pull it up.
That's just basically all my portfolio. Well, I haven't updated in a while. There's a lot of things I've done. Well, I haven't posted a lot of things because I'm not sure if I can yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're working. Oh man, dude, this thing is so tight. I really do love your site, by the way.
Oh, that's all thanks to ArtStation. It does it for me. I just pay them and I just put it in my portfolio in a way. I mean, they help me build it, but
All right.
yeah. So I guess
Let's look at some covers real quick.
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to separate these, you know. So I've done covers like for fun and covers just to do it. So a lot of these, the Spider-Man. So the first few covers, but it's just for fun. I wanted to develop because a lot of cons told me I had to, you know, show how I can work with different characters, and I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna do fun covers to see if I can work with different characters. So the first, you know, that's the superhero ones. I know that Keen loves the Spider-Man one. That was
Love it.
So I was just working with different covers to see that I can work with different characters. Different
This Crimson Leaf cover is ridiculously sick. I don't think people understand the depth of it. You have to go to his site, marcodefillo.com, and really.
Well, Crimson, that's the story I was talking about that I had to abandon in college. The story was the concept was really cool. It basically was a story about a girl who lost her sister and how she's been able to deal with it. And the concept is, what if you get the chance? They get transported to this world of a world of undying, kind of a purgatory. Not in a sense that people who are here, there are spirits that have moved to this world. They can't die in this world. And it's like a prison. So these two characters come from the world of the living to this kind of world, and then we go through. Well, we go through the main character, which is the girl. She gets her chance to, you know, experience being with her sister one more time, and there's a lot of twists to turn to it. I kind of got the concept down. I have to just write it down, but that was just a story that was like I have to sit down and flesh out the character, and that's why it took me like 2 years to finally sit down and understand it completely.
I can. It's interesting that was the one that stood out to me the most. And the other thing that's crazy about this dude is, like, if I've always said that I don't really care to write or do big two stuff, but if I did, it would be the Flash, because the storyline is already so corrupted that you could do anything you wanted.
Yeah.
and your take on Flash, dude, is like, yeah, man, we would kill Flash. We would kill it. Like, we would kill the Flash. And then Spider-Man, I don't know if anybody knows, if you watch Spider-Man No Way Home.
Thanks, man, for that. I think it's an awesome concept too. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, if you watch Spider-Man No Way Home, you realize that I am actually Spider-Man. So looking at, like, I think that's the other thing that I love is the process, right? So seeing the process of this cover and watching it turn into this and just seeing so much awesomeness. If you don't get a Spider-Man gig in your career, I'm going to burn the world.
Well, Marvel, if you're out there.
Oh, they're out there, bro.
I know they are. I just think they haven't noticed who I am yet.
And this Batgirl cover, like, a lot of people don't know the coolness around Batgirl, but like her whole persona changed around like 8 years ago, 6, 7 maybe years ago.
She's relatively, yeah, she's still like a lot of the woman characters are now developing to be more interesting, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, I
love this.
Yeah, and that was just me developing my painting style. I always have a love for comics and also painting. I've always been in between the two, concept art and all that, and this was just my chance to just go for it. Another personal work, it was like these little superhero projects are just to show people that, I mean, I'm not afraid to use you as characters, and these are kind of the way I do it. And then you have Path to the Pale Rider covers, issue 1 and 2. And then on this one, it's like, what's the bear's name again? James, Big Jim.
Yeah,
Big James. It's when it comes to these covers, there's a lot of I put a lot of meaning into these because I really want to you understand the story through a cover, and I sometimes put too much into it. I say service being flashy and cool, and it's pretty cool. This cover kind of like when I did this cover, kind of really explain how issue 2 is very gritty, very grunge, and issue 2 just came out, so be on the lookout for that too. I think she'll have issues available. I think issue 1, 2. But the Kickstarter just finished for that one, so it's very being made right now.
Yeah, man, we were talking about some of these characters and kind of like, I don't think people realize like Marco doesn't just be like, all right, yeah, sure, we'll do whatever. He reads the script, and so like at one point he's telling Lori like, I don't think they would do this. So the character, the scene got rewritten.
The only reason I would tell the writer not to do something is if I feel like I'm working to something and then the character says something that's off-putting to me, and I'm like, hold up, this is out of character.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't say much. But I learned from the process. I actually have two. I actually am surprised I haven't put 2 covers up here yet. It's from it was a Kickstarter. It was already finished, and the story just needs to be done. It's called Cruiser. We're all mad here. It's about like the Alice in Wonderland. I haven't updated that one, but the reason I'm telling you that is because if you go to the covers, go back to the covers real quick.
Yeah.
This one's from the very left one. It's called From the Last Ember Press. Sorry, I've been working with them a lot. They've been giving me a lot of opportunities. So yeah, I'm expected to do stuff for them. So I'm probably gonna send out a lot of stuff from them. Yeah, and these are just the covers. This one, there's more. I haven't posted a lot of them. I haven't updated my website yet, but it will.
And that's another thing. You have me now. I will help. Being able to see a lot of this stuff, like people don't understand sequential art is very different than illustration.
Oh yeah, big time.
I like your take on sequential art. There's the very clean, boxy versions of things, and then I like when you kind of add your own.
I'm breaking more rules now. Yeah, I'm starting to break more rules. The last.
It's not called breaking rules. It's called making rules. You're making your own rules. I like.
At that one point, I think comics is more experimental in a sense. There is rules, but I mean, a lot of times people just break them. So
yeah. And a lot of this stuff with your like you said, your painting style and.
Well, this one just basically illustrations of me trying to figure out who I am as an artist. I still think I'm still finding out. But as you can tell, very sci-fi, very fantasy, creature-based. Everything has a story to it. My illustrations tend to have more story-based. There's something behind everything I draw. I wish I could just draw pretty things sometimes because that gets the most views.
you do draw pretty things like
yeah, I do. But
this right here, this Land of Legends, and this thing right here reminds me of the Neil Gaiman story that they made into a movie. The movie flopped, but I think it's because there's no way that the special effects could meet the imagery. I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It had like De Niro in it as like a pirate. Man, what was the name of that movie? Hold on, I'm literally gonna
look it up.
Oh yeah, man, because it's on my brain and I can't stop at this point. Stardust.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, where the guy like crosses the wall and it goes into a whole different world, and then he's like in a pirate ship in the sky and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, man, it's super cool.
And I saw the comment. I'll keep breaking rules. I'm to the point. It's like I'll draw whatever I want to the point where someone tells me, even if they tell me it's not right, I'll be like, oh okay, I'll make it work somehow. And I'll get their input and then work it out. But a lot of these are really cool. I mean, like this one, where the mouse is at the middle one, where the 2 characters are fighting. Those are just my characters. That's another story I'm trying to develop. Her name is Mabel Savage. The kid.
Oh yeah. I saw the cover earlier, the Mabel Savage, and here's obviously some character work with this.
Those are old. I need to redo them, but they're very that one's a cyberpunk type of world. You have a girl who is rough, tough, that does like bounty hunter work, and then you have the girl in the background who is a dragon. It's called, well, part of a religion called Draco. Basically, they evolved their religion over like a meteorite that fell a long time ago that caused a bunch of mutations in the world. And this is set like 50 years after all this like mutation virus. It was very inspired by COVID because it was happening during that time.
Oh,
and
man.
the story it's about a girl who's looking for something important in the city, and she meets this woman called Mabel Savage, which has a legend behind her. And then through their search, they uncover her past. And it's and that one's an ongoing one too. See, I have stories. I just have to finalize them in my head or get someone to come and sit down with me and we can talk about it.
Oh yeah, man. That's one of those things, dude. It's one of those things where it's you kind of just got to do what you got to do with it. Playing with things. I keep telling everybody, like, play with things and develop it even in small ways. Even if you look back at it 10 years from now and you say, oh man, I should redo this. Well, it started somewhere because you played with it in the first place.
Yeah, and then the Mabel Savage thing is gonna happen. I mean, there's a comic too. Go back real quick. I don't know if it's there. Go in the sequentials. I think I did like a scene of it. How the play it will play. Yeah, it's the top right corner. Top right.
There we go.
Yeah, and this one was just experiment to see how these characters will interact and if it will work. And it came out great. I called it the coffee break. It's basically a girl it's like a girl basically annoying this rough and tough girl until a point where she's like, oh, whatever, let's just go.
Man, this is super cool, dude. Like that's the fun thing too, is like I love being attached to things that you do, but at the same time, I can't wait.
Thanks again for the compliment.
I can't wait to see you do other things as well. And like I don't want to be the guy that like says I told you so or any of that kind of shit. But at the same time, from the beginning of this, I've always said like I want to see you get work.
Man,
and that's kind of one of those things where it's like, man, if I could be a part of that journey, I would be so fucking happy. Like looking at a lot of this stuff, man, it's extremely inspiring. And I hope that it inspires other people because, dude, I'm telling you right now, if Marvel said, hey, yo, Eddie, Marco, King Eddie, Marco, we'll let you guys do 5 issues of Spider-Man and 5 issues of Flash, I would be like, shit, we're going to retire.
Well, we would DC. I guess DC and Marvel have to like both.
Yeah, Marvel and DC. Like if they each said, "Hey, man, take a shot," I think that we would knock it out of the park. I think that we would do some things that nobody's done. I think it's funny. I like this here. Where
that's actually from that's actually a book that came out recently. He was like, he contacted me. What's it called? Come on. Okay, so it was from his company base called Plastic Sword Press. He actually was a real writer from the short story Root. He came up to me. He has a book that came out. It was called Make Believe, and he was like, "Hey, can you make these cool characters? They're in a video game, but they're on a VR, and they're just like fighting in a grocery store." And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I took it to where it's like, I don't know. It took me my mind to the classic games where you get points when you hit stuff. I see that's pretty fun. Like swinging swords, getting points. So that was a cool one to do.
Yeah, man. I'm actually sending Kaio the link to get in here real quick because I want to get his take on some things. Because this dude can talk story like nobody. And he like the way he views comics and storytelling. And he was writing a story called Blue Matter a couple of years ago, and I was reading it, and it's just like he's kind of somebody that's kind of like you, where it's like, oh yeah, I was just doing this thing. I wasn't really you know, it didn't have to be anything, or it's not as good as it could be, or I'd like to revisit that. But like I'm like a dude who's been writing since the 7th grade, and I read kind of some of what Kaio did, and it just like blew my mind. It's always fun to see other people's stories, man. It's always fun to see other people's stories.
Yeah,
And
trying to develop
make,
to be something bigger.
I thought the make-believe thing was cool because of the video game aspect, because I don't know if you can see it, but my kids are playing Call of Duty behind me.
Isn't it school night?
No, it's not actually. They're out of school tomorrow and Tuesday because apparently Valentine's Day is like a multiple day holiday in South Carolina.
What?
Yeah, I think it's like a teacher work day thing or something. But
okay.
Also, it means they get to spend more time like hanging out and watching crazy stuff. But watching like some of everybody's so into online play now that they don't pay attention to the campaign modes and the stories. I mean, they hire legit actors and legit writers. So I was watching some of that and just kind of looking at the cinematic and the break. Like God of War is like, you can't tell if you're in the cinematic or if you're in the gameplay sometimes. I would really love to put some video game aspects, like a first person shooter kind of perspective through some of the fight scenes. And that's why I thought that make believe piece was cool, because it's like, oh, so it's not the first time you've dangled into video games. Jake Smith, Dead Gremlin Comics, Jake Smith, he also really plays on that video game aspect of things.
Oh yeah,
and
he does an amazing job.
Yeah, it inspired me, man. Like it really did inspire me, and so that's cool. So we got Kaio here, and I'm actually gonna bring him in now.
Okay.
All right, bro. Yeah.
How's it going? Let's see your face.
Yo.
So this is Kaio. It's my brother. Legitimately, he is my brother more so than any other human could be. Named my son after him. He literally threw fuel on the fire of me trying to understand a culture and a religion and anything. Honestly, philosophy, physical aspects like mind over matter, matter over mind, all kinds of stuff, man. This guy kind of does it. So I want to kind of see what you got to bring to the table, man. Anything that inspires you or anything that you want to talk about?
I meant it what I commented earlier. If I didn't come to your signing of that first book that you did of Russ, I don't think I would have had this separate world for me to explore while I was on my back for the better part of 6 months.
Yeah.
And because I had all of this inspiration and just watching all these different characters overcome things that was way more outlandish than getting hit by a car, I refused to give up when at least half a dozen times I felt like just giving up. And then when we started linking up and we started exploring not just fictional characters and fictional stories, but our own personal struggles with everything that was going on at that time. So you became a huge part of my recovery as well. So hopefully I get to help whatever way I can, help you push this story through, because it's not that there's nothing that I've ever gotten behind that was just about me or stroking my own personal ego. But if the story makes sense, if it's entertaining, if there's life lessons behind it, I'm 100% in. And everything about this story is all of those things and more.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, man. There's something that I want to kind of we'll do like a little reversal of roles here. Marco, is there anything you want to ask Kaio about stuff? Since we're doing the story with Hawaii and all this kind of stuff, or is there anything that you want to point out that maybe struck you and kind of get like a perspective of somebody who's basically some of the people that are enlightening me on my journey. Anything?
I mean, I don't have much something right now, but I feel like I connected with him in the comments when he said that island culture. He's known a lot of Puerto Ricans and a lot of island cultures with Puerto Rico and Hawaii. They kind of parallel. I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to get his aspect, what his thoughts was on that, because it's always interesting to hear how, because I've done the same. Like I have a buddy that I sat with. He was from Vietnam, and I was sitting down, and we had a lot of foods that were the same. It was always very cool to see that same culture. But I want to hear his perspective on like the similarities between Puerto Rico and Hawaii.
I just as humbled as I was from Eddie. That means a lot to me too. So thank you, Marco.
Yeah.
So specifically, my influences from Puerto Rico rather are via New York. I've met a ton of New Yorkers that all are either from Puerto Rico or they have roots in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my backgrounds, I've lived several different lives that I had to restart all over again. But one of them was heavily rooted in music. And something that locals here resonate with is the rebel spirit of Jamaican music.
Mm-hmm.
And in the exploration of Jamaican music and history, another parallel is reggaeton.
Yep.
And the more that I learned about reggaeton, I was like, this is literally Hawaii. Like everything about reggaeton, from just the dynamic of sound and their own concept of heavily influenced music from someplace else and making it their own, specifically to push their ideology behind what happened to their people and how they struggle in their own backyard trying to carve out a living for themselves, trying to solidify their identity, not just today, but the rich history that's behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't understand where we as Hawaiians come from.
Mm-hmm.
They see the loincloths, they see surfers, and that's what they expect. The coconuts and hula skirts and all those things, but they don't understand what's behind it. So we use our music to kind of bring down the defenses of somebody that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't quite understand where we're coming from. And when they relate to our lyrics and to the music itself, then they start getting a little more interested. It's like, okay, so I heard this story. I want to know more about the story. Who is this character? Who is this person? Who are these people? And so the more that I got to be around Puerto Ricans and I got to hear their own cultural stories and how much of the Puerto Ricans I'm aware of, they don't know too much of their own history.
Mm-hmm.
They know the struggles, they know that they're lacking in so many different avenues, but that pride that you brought up earlier, that's one thing that we as islanders connect with. We are so proud of everything that's been stacked up against us that we should have failed, that we should have just shriveled up and died under. But we thrive in those instances.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot even put a finger on it. I'm telling you right now, I don't know why I'm not dead. I really don't understand it. I should be dead. And it's not just that car accident. It's not just so a year within that same year that I got hit by the car, I was actually hit in the throat, just outside, right underneath my jawline, by an ex-world champion. He was helping me get ready for a fight that I had to pull out last minute because I almost died from my lymph nodes swelling up to the size of a goose egg, and that caused infection in my brain. And so I literally almost dropped dead a week before the fight, and I had to pull out, which also redirected my life path leading up to that point. And I was very bitter. I was very disheartened. But in the same sense, like I said, I don't know why I didn't die all these times that I should have died. I almost died out in the sea. I almost died in the middle of the street. And besides there being a mission that I'm just not quite getting, there's to me there's no reason as to why I would be here having this conversation with you. And I
Well,
do believe that that's very islander centric
mhm.
in the sense that we don't know what our purpose is, but the only thing we know for sure is we're going to keep swinging until we hit something.
Yeah, and I'm happy you're here, man. Having this conversation, and maybe that's one of the purposes that you're here, just to talk to us and help this story too. But I want to get back to the music. I think you're absolutely right. And a lot of levels, the music that you're talking about, it is speaking from their struggles as kids. As I think that's what most people right now. Bad Bunny is one of the biggest artists right now because he sings from his experiences. He sings. He is not just. He's not singing just to sing. I think that's one of the things that's catching a lot of fire with him. He's singing from his experiences as from his home, from his relationships, and also uh, what he grew up as. It's a culture built on music, like you said, music on salsa, rich culture on Latin culture mixture. I think that's also very important. The Puerto Rico is there's a lot of mixture, but in the end of the day, you are right. We don't know our we know we know that we are an island full of like mixed people, like mixed cultures, but like roots to Taino culture, that's one of the missing links that we have. That I think it's so important that the Hawaiians do have that connection because it makes it even more of a pride. Even though we are very proud of who we are, but
Right.
you guys have another level to it. Taino culture was annihilated by the earlier Spaniards, which is atrocities, and also it was a mixed into the culture. So mostly all Puerto Ricans have a mixture of that culture, but we don't know the origins because we don't have no one to explain to us. And I think that's important. And then it comes to this sense of pride. We're in a small island, but we have all this big heart. We have loud voices. We are strong-minded, will-minded, and that's the funny thing is like every time we see someone like that represents us on TV, it's not like just we all support them, and it's like we are a big family. Like you said, we keep swinging. We keep swinging to do our best, and we support those who are thing. I think it's a nice parallel between Hawaii and Puerto Rico. Yeah. I appreciate that the talk.
No worries.
Yeah. I don't even know where Kenyeri left. He just disappeared.
No worries.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I wanted to mention that I have had the opportunity to hear a lot about your work and see it. Like I did everything I could to Google you directly. I have been at your site and I was like, man, this guy is amazing. And
Thank you.
not gonna lie, like Eddie's greatest fear is I'm gonna lose this guy before we actually get anything done. And just recognizing, how much faith Eddie had in you before I really got to know
Yeah,
anything about you. I knew you're something special. You have to be something special
yeah,
for Eddie to be afraid of losing you before anything actually gets done. It's like that's not something that's common with somebody like Eddie King, unless there's a legitimate reason to have that fear. So
yeah.
that's
I appreciate his confidence in me. That's one of the biggest things. I myself sometimes doubt. Well, that's because it's the artist mindset, I guess. We're always the worst to ourselves than anybody else. But it's good to hear when Eddie comments and compliments because I'm always like, I'm always kind of destroying myself, not to the sense where it's like degrading myself. It's just basically I want to get better. So my brain has that initial concept of like never be satisfied.
oh
So
yeah,
it's good to hear
don't
that.
ever
It's
lose
like, okay,
that
you know what? You
because
made the story. You told the story like this, bro, and it's like perfect. I'm like, okay, good to hear.
Yeah, dude. Like honestly, there is a legitimate when I see something where I'm always that guy. Like I always feel like it's not going to be me that gets anybody to the finish line. So if I do have time with them, I want to maximize that time, not just for myself. But part of that is just coming to terms with, helping somebody to progress to their potential and knowing when people have potential to go and do super great things. It's scary because it's like, man, I hope that we can accomplish what I hope to accomplish before they go on to accomplish these other things. And honestly, I feel like that's a trait that maybe has grown in the last 10 years or so. And a lot of that has grown because of people like Kaio and, and his wife. And he understands that a group of people that I fell in with in Hawaii was completely coincidental, but most of them were from Molokai. And Molokai is an island that's like close to Oahu, but it's like no Walmart, no traffic light, no, it's country.
Oh, I get that feeling. My grandpa's from the mountains, so when we go up there, it's a whole different world.
So when I connected with these people and I saw how everybody was kind of like lifting each other up and supporting each other, even it was like a subculture within a culture. So there was a fighter, and honestly, I was talking to his wife on Facebook the other day, but Saleh literally beat the shit out of my best friend at the time, right in front of my face. And his dad, Buzz was right behind me. And like, it hurt my feelings to see Saleh beat the shit out of my buddy like that. But because dude, my friend was a serious guy, but Saleh just dispatched him in a very, very brutal way. But they both came to me, like Saleh had the belt on his shoulder and Buzz was right behind me, and they like embraced me and were like, I know this is hard, man, but it was my job. I had to like take pictures and write stories and tell the truth. But when I connected with Saleh and kind of seeing how, you remember when Saleh fought and he actually lost, and then we all got together and had dinner at Zippy's. It was like watching Kaio and Saleh and the whole family and us. We were just talking about all the good things, talking about what's going to happen next, talking about back in the day. It was just a really good time. And I realized then that you can appreciate the greatness in somebody, and you can push that forward. Even when there are greater things happening around you, you can still fertilize and facilitate those things. So learning that from Kaio and Saleh and a lot of people in Hawaii, you can see why that means a lot to me. You can see why this story itself means a lot to me, because it was developmental in my life. But it all came from somewhere else. And that came from somewhere else. I'm sure that, everybody that knows Saleh knows Buzz, and everybody that knows Buzz knows that, like, I always thought he was quiet. And everybody was like, no, bro, he's not quiet.
That's what I was like when I was like, maybe when we write those characters, we make sure we talk to you guys to make sure that we're representing you guys correctly. Maybe we can put a picture of them and then explain why Koa at the back of the book, why he inspires you so much as a tribute to him.
Yeah, man, it's a real thing, because that is kind of like, if you think back to around the time that MAUKA was being conceived, Kaio can attest, it was not the easiest time in my life. I actually never wanted to leave Hawaii. Never. Like, never. Didn't want to leave at all. But it kind of became necessary and unavoidable. Like, I had to do it at the time, but it was a really hard time and very tumultuous time. But a lot of that stuff, like, I was very volatile. Like, there were things that I could have done or said, or like I would go off the hinges on things, and then like Kaio would be there and kind of like rein me down a little bit without taking away anything from what I was feeling, without invalidating anything. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's cultural, and it really sucks to say that, because I wish that there were more cultures like that. But it is a very cultural thing to where I was family. I was part of this, and it wasn't so much about me making the right decisions for now, or me doing what other people view as positive now or successful now. It was about what was right. It was about what made sense. It was about what I could reach and put my hands on. You know, stop thinking about the peak and just think about the trail. You know, that was something that Kaio gave me. And hearing stories about how he got that, I really wish that we could just like grab a Ouija board and find out where they got that, and then where they got that, and then where they got that. You know, to me, it seems very connected and obvious.
Yeah. So and those are the stories that are going to make this book interesting. So,
Kaio, you got any questions about the book?
Yeah, actually, so I know for sure that you guys are heavy in wanting to make sure you represent the people right, which I appreciate as being among those people. Um, More than that, I'm actually interested in the actual story. You know, it's like, what is the concept that is driving this post-apocalyptic concept, with the single-mindedness of getting to the higher ground? I've never had that opportunity, because when we talk, it's usually about local culture, island style, and all that stuff. But I never really got to delve into the again, the driving force behind the journey itself. I'd like to hear more about that.
Okay, so for me, personally, when I moved to Hawaii, the first mistake that I made was thinking that I could convince people that I was a different person than I was. That I moved to this place and all of a sudden I was different. And all of a sudden, all these things that I said mattered. And kind of along the way, I had to realize where to choose my words. You know, when I would be at fight events, like everybody knows, dude, like the salt of the earth, like where it all starts, like the triple threat matches, the man up, stand up kickboxing, where there's like 4-year-olds in headgear and like 50-year-olds fighting 20-year-olds, and there's like 60 fights. The Philcom, which is the Filipino Community Center, which was right down the road from where I lived, would be packed, and I would say stuff and I would get like smacked in the back of the head, like, hey man, you never know who's around you, like watch what you say. I kind of started to realize that there was a tribal idea where we were all one people, but we were all very distinctly different. Like East Side people are East Side people. It's luscious, it's green, but it rains all the time. You see a lot of people from the East Side that have like this odd positive mentality. And to me, I feel like it's because they always see the sun come out. You know, they always go through that. They, you know, there's the strong military presence over there, but at the same time, you know, there's a little bit more control of the land. There's a little bit more control over what's going on. People are very artisanal. It's just a different feel. The West Side is like portrayed as like the Wild West, but like at the same time, when you think about how isolated it is, it's hard to just get up and go to work, because if you want to wake up and go to work and be there by 8, you need to leave your house at 4. And then you're going to get home at 11, you know, and then do it all over again. But yet they're still hustling. Like they're doing all this stuff. There were strong Filipino contingents, like in Waipahu, there was the area that I lived in that was mainly like, you know, Filipino people and elderly Japanese couples. And just watching how those different aspects of life served their purpose. And like, I couldn't get over the fact that, like, no matter what happens in the world, I don't think you can take that away. Like, I really don't think that you can ever change it. And so if the world were to end, so to speak, and we ended up in this dystopian place, I honestly believe that islands like Oahu and you know, anywhere in Hawaii or Puerto Rico or Samoa or Tonga or any of these places, I feel like we're gonna, like, if that were to happen, we would get a faster leveling, because things are already done in a way that keeps this very delicate ecosystem going. So with this book, what I want to do is I want to portray those pieces. I want to portray those parts, but I also want to throw chaos into it to prove the rule, to prove that this is how it would level out, you know? So that's kind of the basis of the story.
I think
just
I
not
want to add to
knowing.
that, because I think you're also missing you don't notice it, but I think you have become a dad yourself, Eddie, and you have your kids. I think you're missing like the most basic part of your story. It's about a guy looking for his family in the end of the world, and he has to be dealing with he's an outsider dealing with different cultures he doesn't fully understand, so he has to learn to adapt, coexist, learn their cultures, like you were saying there, while he's looking for his family. And by doing that, he has to go to different tribes that have formed because of this end world ending. Like you said, people will stick together at some point. And then the thing that I think you forgot to say is that he built a group with these different type of cultures you're talking about. And these type of cultures, to get away from all the violence and understand live in harmony, to kind of be safe, they move up to the mountain. And that's where you can see all the dangers. But it's like the journey of them, of the main character looking family, and also they're trying to be safe from all the dangers around them. So they collectively join together, and all these different cultures are learning to help each other out.
That's true. I guess that is something that like I thought about a little, but like it only developed itself further now. And that is that there's always going to be a black sheep, you know, and Koa is one of those black sheep. And like he is like West Side through and through, bro. You don't have 96792 tattooed on your chest unless you mean to be there. But like I guess my thing is, it's like he understands the value in the group, the little nomadic group that we kind of find ourselves with.
I don't think you notice. King, you don't notice. This book is very you. All these stories I've told is about you two, you guys. Koa, representing the guy, the spiritual guy, and you're frustrated, and Carlos is frustrated as a character, and you're getting advice from Koa. You are writing about a personal experience, and I think that's why it's so strong. This relationship between Koa and Carlos are very real life like, because it actually happened. So I think it's also about the friendship between them.
Yeah, and then it means not always being polite, not always being pleasant. Like sometimes Koa got to jerk the choke chain on Carlos a little bit, because I don't think he understands how delicate it is, you know, like we haven't gotten to dive into it that much, but that the group that they're a part of, we call them the Akaika, right? And basically, like I've been toying around with a bunch of different stuff. I was listening to like a punk song the other day called Phantom City, and it just dawned on me, like that's their group. They're the Phantom City. Like they move through these places, they're picking people up as they go, they're losing people as they go, they're learning to trade, they're building new things. And like I said in the little preview video, it's almost like these two guys are almost dancing this dance with the devil, trying to avoid this what seems to be inevitable tribal war. But they realize how dependent they are on each aspect of their own community, and on the grander scale, why that makes sense. Let's avoid this war, and let's focus on the things that each people bring, and stop trying to do a power grab.
So that was an over explanation of the story.
I appreciate that, because I do see the necessity in taking that longer path, because ultimately it's no one thing. You know, it to me, this is exactly what I personally look for in a story. It's a living, breathing thing that maybe at the start there was an idea with a main end goal, and as this story starts to materialize, you recognize that the journey isn't exactly the way you had originally intended. And because the journey is changing along the way, the story is beginning to evolve with it. And I don't even have this thing in my hand yet, and I'm super stoked to see where you guys land.
Well,
And they said like I'm not the type of person that gravitates towards all of this. Like I am actually very embarrassed personally at all this attention that it throws my way about how much I inspire and stuff. It's very intimidating because now that I'm not just an idea anymore. I'm physically here having this conversation with you, Marco.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's a lot. There's a lot to live up to. And
Yeah, I think it's perfect because like I said, it's a base idea. You have this character named Carlos who's looking for his family in this island that's now isolated, and then the evolution to where he has to learn how to navigate through this world, not just by understanding cultures, by communicating with people, um, and then he has someone to kind of guide him through this way. I think it is like I said, it's a journey that evolves. Um, and I, well, I haven't. So we still have to talk to. I have to talk to Eddie, but we gotta see how this journey evolves still. Cause we know where it's going, but I'm pretty sure he has tricks he hasn't showed me yet. I I know the basis, you
There's
know.
a lot. There's a lot, and it's kind of like, the more I look at it, I always used to like laugh when I was very young, and they would teach us that like there are these are the ways to write, and I was like, fuck this bullshit. Like, what do you mean there's ways to write? And then like I look at it now, and I literally follow those things, because they're the stories that make us us. It's the way that our we as humans, it's the way
Mhm.
we process things. The hero's journey, like that's not a story. The hero's journey is a thing that every human being goes through in their life, and it just so happens we write stories about it. So like watching that part of it evolve is really cool, and knowing that things have to get ugly because it, as people say, it's always darkest before the dawn. Sometimes it's dark for a really long time. Sometimes you might be in the bright sunshine and the dark comes to you. Like you might be on the receiving end of the flip of the script. And it doesn't always happen in the ways that are deserving. It doesn't always happen in the ways that make the most sense morally. um Another piece of it too is like, we talk about representation, we talk about making sure everything's right. I think Kaio knows, and a lot of people should know, telling it the right way is gonna kind of ruffle some feathers, because
yeah,
there's a lot of shit that goes on, man. There's a lot of shit that gets said. There's a lot of shit that goes on, and it's like for real, for real. And if I didn't do that correctly, if we didn't tell that story with those rough edges, it wouldn't be a good story, and it wouldn't be as realistic. It would seem utopian, you
I
know.
think no, I think there's a point. We should tell a story. But also, yeah, we want to be respectful. We have all these ideas, but we also trying to tell a story. And you're right. The story has to, come out. I say, it has to be told the right way, like you're saying. And it probably will ruffle some feathers, but as long as we do respectfully, I think we'll be good.
Well, and honestly,
Yeah,
I think that's the main part is honestly. And since it's our story, I don't think anybody can really tell us how it should go. However, I look forward to the day, because that means they give a shit.
well, how it should go, I don't think anybody else would have an opinion about that. I don't think, and because it's your story, it's your story how you want to tell the story, and how the world story ends is up to you.
Yeah, well, but at the same
The
time,
only aspect that they have limits is how you represent it, and that's all that you need to worry about.
yeah, but I mean
I
that's
can agree with that.
but as well as I do, we're all comics people here. Everybody talks about comics, and people say nerd and all this kind of stuff, but like we really know that comics people are just at the end of the day passionate.
Oh, for sure.
About every last thing, about color, about shading, about lines, about names, about pen names, about story arcs, about characters. And when people rise up against you with your own story and they try to formulate a coup, it's almost like I see people getting pissed about it, and I think to myself, like, man, I would love to make people give a shit that much to like want to tell me like, nah, bro, like I care this much and it should go this way. I can't wait for that. I'm gonna
I think that aspect we're too far in the past too. That's gonna be way in the future. Right now we just get the story out. Because to that point, that means that multiple people have read it, multiple people give a shit.
Yeah.
It's become an impact in a way that we have never seen it before, that we never thought of before. But I think my aspect is like I've always been to let's just get the first book out and see where that goes, and we move on from there, and we build from that.
I can agree with that. If I could ask at least one more question.
Oh yeah.
With my again access to your work, Marco,
Mm-hmm.
I love your work. Your work is truly amazing. I wanted to try and get into your head with regards to your inspiration as to like
Mm-hmm.
what got you started,
Mm-hmm.
and then ultimately just like the evolution of my understanding of this story, and again my journey with Mr. King.
Definitely,
What
definitely.
got
Actually,
you
I
here?
have to, let me get some books real quick. So first things first. When I was little, in Puerto Rico, I used to be left with it's not a nanny. We were more as a family member. She was like another grandma to me. She took care of me and all that. But what she always put when I was little, after I was woken up, it was Dragon Ball Z on the TV. That
All
was
right.
always playing. When I was little, I would watch these Dragon Ball Z shows, and I was amazed. I was like, "Wow, it's like it was another world that I never knew." And since I'm a kid, of course, I don't know reality versus fiction at that point. So I was affected very early age, and still like in Puerto Rico, I'll be watching Justice League. It's really started with TV and cartoons, and as I developed my understanding. I didn't. Oh, okay. So I loved art, but I never knew that was my passion. I just kept watching TV. I watched too much TV. I started reading manga, um, comics too. I think one of my favorites was from DC. It's called Kingdom Come by Alex Ross. I love this artwork.
Nice.
I'm so in love how he not oil paints. I think he was a. I gotta research that because I thought it was oil paint, but I know someone else told me he did a different. He might have just done oil paint something else, but also I got into One Piece a lot. Iricho Oda. I don't know his first name. I'm sorry for butchering, but his characterization of characters, how goofy they can be, they can be whatever they want. It's like an anime that it's an anime that doesn't look like an anime in a
Okay.
sense.
Okay.
That's always been I think with his work. Anime had strict rules, big head, smaller body. The only thing he does do like anime, all the girls have big boobs, but I think that's just the guy thing. And what I liked about his work is that he broke all the rules of he breaks the rules of anime, and he does it in his own style. He doesn't care, and I think that's inspired me a lot. A lot of my works is like stop giving a shit so much about what people it should look like and what compared to your work. And that's one of my big inspirations for him. And then, and also I gotta add this. Also, Oda represents. It's funny because I always knew in his work he represents different cultures in his work compared to all everyone being white. You can tell by the characters how they respond. He does have a problem. Well, at the anime has a problem with associating skin tones, but I can always tell. I can always tell a character from their background, and he actually confirmed it because they're doing a live action of this book now. and the other
Nice.
races. Like the main character is Hispanic, and like you have Japanese character, you have a black character, and all that. So that always got me like the diversity in his work. But when it comes to art, I experienced all these things. I've loved shows. I love superheroes. I love anime. I love these stories that take me out of this world. It was a nice escape. In the aspect of storytelling, I think it's amazing. I think I am going to become a writer one day, but I don't know when because I'm not very great at writing. So I went to college expecting to be a graphic designer because had talent in manipulating pictures at one point, and manipulating pictures, putting things together. But it wasn't until I took like an art class that I drew the ugliest drawings. To one point, it was like, what do I want to do in my life? I love this sketch. It looks horrible, but I feel like I could do it. So for some reason, after that ugly sketch, I was like, okay, I'm switching my majors, going to be a full artist. I went from a job that was secure to make me money to a job that was like, yeah, I don't know if you're gonna make money. So, I mean, I worked hard on it. I put my mind to it. I worked, and the more I put my mind to it, teachers starting to notice how hard I worked. I think I wasn't the most talented. It looks, and now my work looks at a different level, but I wasn't the most talented at the beginning. There was people that were way more talented than me. So it just inspired me to work harder. I think the best comment they gave me is like, the way you work at something, the way you're determined to get something done is the way that you're going to become successful. So that's what I did. My 4 years in college, I just stayed in my studio, learning all I could, everything, to a point where I started surpassing people I imagined were way better than me. Teachers started to notice. Of course, Kyle Strum was one of them. I sat down with him, and he was like, he'd give me advice about comics, and he'd be like, the only reason I'm telling you this, Marco, is because I know you give a shit. I know, like, if I tell you something, you're gonna do it. So, and which gave me great opportunities, me connecting to my instructors and all that. So to answer this question with a complex answer is my inspiration comes from movies, books, manga books, comic books later on in life. Honestly, comic books came later, and which is surprising to me, but it started with shows because I was watching when I was little. And the inspiration got into art is because I thought I had a good drawing at one point. So I was like, I want to tell stories. I can't be a director, but I want to draw. If I have the ability to draw a story, I'm going to do it.
Dude, I appreciate you sharing that, and don't even worry about what you think is overcomplicated,
Yeah.
because again, I feel every bit of that answer was
Yeah.
necessary for me to understand. Two things. One, I know exactly why Eddie kicks it with you as hard as he does. I know exactly why. You are a Puerto Rican me. 100%. You're Puerto Rican me.
I thank you.
I find myself, I constantly tell Kyle like all the time. I'm like, okay, all right. So like I have this friend over here, like, and I don't know how to explain it, but like I don't trust people as easily as people think I do. And when I trust somebody, it's like all the way. Same to me, like love, right? Like you can't love someone more or less. You can love them differently, but love is all the way to the end. So trust is all the way to the end. I'll say like, yeah, man, this guy's like, he's like the pumpkin town white redheaded American Caio, and I love this guy. And it's my friend Vance. And I think eventually he understood what that meant, right? But it's true.
Oh, yeah.
I tend to gravitate towards people that it's not necessarily that you're alike in the most strict of terms, but
no.
In like direction, in feeling, in sincerity, I think is the main thing. Genuine, authentic sincerity. When this dude tells me something, it might sound like he's pumping me up, but I know he believes it. Mm-hmm. Even against my own advice, he still believes it. And the same is true with you. Like, I know that if I say something, like, the cool thing is every artist I've worked with before wouldn't necessarily, I think, Caio can mirror some of my frustration in trying to get into comics, because like I'm trying to get these artists to give a shit. And it's almost like they're like, yeah, man, I care so much. And then they don't really give a shit. But the way you can tell somebody cares is through the sincere, genuine attempt or advice or take or opinion or spin or idea, or when to interject with something and when not to. And it's just, that's always flowed really easy with Marco. So yeah, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head, because even with Kaio, it's like hard stuff to talk about, you know? But he's still good. I know that whatever he says is actually what he thinks. I know that whatever he tells me he wants to do, I can feel comfortable as a friend pushing him, because I know he's telling me the truth, that this is what he wants. You know, the same with you. You know, when you say, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to write, like you say all these things like about yourself as a writer. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that that means that you're well on your way, my friend, because I absolutely hate everything about my writing.
I know. I'm sinking myself into a tunnel. I want to be an artist and a writer. I'm just gonna hate myself constantly. But if the story comes out and people enjoy the story, I think in the end of the day, I'll be satisfied. I think that's the whole point. I want to tell stories that people can dig into it and be memorable.
When you realize that it's not about you disliking your work, it's about you having a standard for how well you portray this image to someone else, how well you portray this world to someone else, or how, you know, like you said, you like the connection part that I have when I translate it into a script, right? You know, even the script changes when I letter the shit, man. Like it's gonna change based on the conversation in my head. You're at least sincere and you're pushing yourself, and that's part of it. Like Kaio's been through a lot of different variations of things and favorites, and like I still actually, I think I have the some of the stuff that I've like gotten for him at cons and stuff, because by the time I left Hawaii, there wasn't any cons, and now I think there's like 2 or 3 really good ones, but not everybody likes to go out to Hawaii and not get as much money as some other people, so it's kind of hard to meet your heroes, right? Kaio loves James O'Barr, and one of the best things that I feel as a writer and as an artist and as a comic book guy and as a friend, one of the best things that I have is I can tell him sincere stories about these things. So I'm at a con, I'm sitting with Kyle and a bunch of people at a drink and draw, which I can't wait for our digital drink and draw. It's so awesome. But like, we're telling stories about like meeting heroes and meeting people. And Kyle's like, yeah, man, I tabled right next to James O'Barr. And like, this guy's a legend, you know? And he's like, and he looks at my stuff and I'm thinking he's going to say something really prolific. And he just looks at me and goes, you know, you could really draw some more boobs or something. When I get to
like an artist thing to say,
when I get to tell Kaio these things, I don't know, man. It's really fun. It's part of the process, right? Like seeing the other side of it, seeing the sincerity, the truth of it, and sharing it with other people. It's like, was I worried that it would diminish something in his head about his favorite? Like maybe a little, but at the same time, it's like I knew it now. I can't lie. So,
wow, that's awesome, though. I thought that comment was awesome.
But it's like
it shows you the mind of the artist. I mean, I think it's funny.
It is, and it speaks also to like, I think all of the best conversations that I've had with other creators, and I always share them with Kaio. Like I always can't wait to tell him about when somebody tells me a story. Like Nick Patera was like, you know, Nick Patera draws things, and we all know Frank Quietly is definitely the inspiration there. And so like when he gives Manhattan Projects which is one of my favorite books of all time, written by another South Carolina guy, Jonathan Hickman, but he gives Manhattan Projects to Frank Quietly, and he's like, can you draw one of my characters? And Quietly looks through the book for like the whole weekend and then comes back to him and goes, I can't draw this shit. I love telling those stories, man, because like we all go there. We all like meet our heroes, or we all like aspire to meet our heroes. None of us are what anybody thinks we are. It's the person that we go to tell these other things to. It's the person that we get like those are the people that know who we are. So like for me, it's really important that no matter what I do, even if I was writing a book that was about like some space colony that had nothing to do with Hawaii, like to me, my sincerity in the story is always going to be something that I consult with, you know, Kaeo about, or you about, or, you know, I'm going to say the things to you guys that other people don't, that I don't say to other people, and then I don't let other people hear me say. But that's part of this whole like going live and talking about shit for 3 hours. It's like, these are the conversations that you have to make it in comics.
Yeah, that's why we made the goal. It's simply the results of. I think that's what we were missing. I honestly, Lori was talking to me. I was like, "What's going on? What happened to the Kickstarter?" I was like, "I think me and Eddie didn't present ourselves to people. I think that's what we're missing, the personal touch. We did all these things. The Kickstarter doesn't have a profile picture of us. It doesn't explain us as people. And I think that was the misconnection, like the connection we were missing. The minute that you started showing yourself at the end, people gave a shit."
That's true, but like at the same time, like, I think Kaio can understand, like people who see me from the outside. Like when I came to Hawaii, I was
You're freezing. Where's
a southern dude that didn't know shit.
No,
So like,
it wasn't.
Oh, so it is him.
Yeah,
You are freezing.
100%.
Okay, you're back.
Am I twigging out? Okay, but like I went and did a bunch of stuff where it was like, when I moved to Hawaii, I was in this fight scene, and like I kept trying to like portray things in ways, and it just seemed like nobody gave a shit, and I didn't understand why nobody gave a shit. At a certain point, I realized like it was more about the reality of it all. So the more that I was like, I have no fucking clue what's going on here, but this is a thing. People cared, and it became like a really big thing. Like it was almost laughable that I was so fucking clueless, but right there in the middle. And people would just give me a break. Like people would just give me a break. They would just be like, bro, you care. Like we love you. You care. But I always feel like because I'm like pitching out these ideas that people think I'm like self-centered and pompous and all this kind of shit. But the things that I'm pushing out there are always for a greater cause, right? So
Yeah,
it's hard for me to put myself out there because I can't differentiate between tooting my own horn or pushing, you know, what the deal is. It's hard.
But I'm going to interject because you don't know how to toot your own horn. You can't do it. It comes off so unnatural that I know it's a spoof. I know it. And so anything that I see you backing, it's because you believe in that and you don't tie it directly to yourself. Your effort is what ties you to the effort. You know, I mean, same thing like Marco. I said, I have heard nothing but amazing things about this guy. And again, everything that I have access to doesn't lead me to believe contrary. And so with you putting yourself out as genuinely you, you know, I mean, it's exactly how you said about the fight game. You came into Hawaii's fight scene and you tried to represent things as you thought was supposed to be. But when you just represented it as Eddie, everything just started moving, you know?
Yeah.
And exactly like how Marco called it out too. It's like you try to separate yourself from this project, but you are this project. And it's refreshing to me that even though you probably didn't do it on purpose, this story sounds like it's really turning out to be your own personal epic.
Yeah,
You know,
there's a
your
lot of it.
own.
There's a lot of it there, but it's like not only telling my own part of it, but that's the vehicle, right?
Right.
Like you
Right.
use your own part to jump into other people's parts and kind of portray a different edge of it. Yeah, I would say, like, I guess advice to other people doing Kickstarters, advice to other people trying to get comics out there. Like, the reason you relate to your own story is because you are you. So
Yeah.
find a way to just tell people why you love your project. Not necessarily don't tell people what they are going to love about your project or what you think they'll love about your project, but why don't you tell them why you love it? And we started doing that, like, I don't know, 10 hours ago, and it's been working out really well since
I
then.
mean,
Man.
the problem. See, I didn't mind representing showing my face for this project, but the problem is, other than the fact that I can have an islander, I don't have any more connection to Hawaii than you do. So I was waiting for you to show your face to be like, okay, this is my project, this is my connection to it, because I am just the artist, and I am important, but you are the writer. I can only put so much until you give me to the other side.
And likewise, though, I don't know how to frame it without coming off wrong, and so that's my hesitation. But
Mhm.
for you, um, yes, you are the artist that is trying to interpret Eddie's story.
Mhm.
You're trying to ultimately, that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to help Eddie tell his story in a manner that the medium allows.
Mhm.
But what you gotta understand is every single project that you get involved in, you are taking a piece of yourself and you are tying that energy into that project.
Mhm.
And that is a piece of you that is floating off into the universe, becoming its own thing. And even though you cannot relate directly to the place that Eddie is trying to represent, even
Mhm.
though you don't have the experiences with the people that he's trying to share with the rest of the world, the fact that you get it enough to represent it in these panels across this story means that you are now directly tied into the story. And I hope by the end of this entire project that you get to own that just as much as you're trying to help Eddie own it too.
Oh yeah,
You know?
definitely. I feel like, see, this aspect that you're explaining to me was having a struggle with some indie writers I'm having. Indie writers don't necessarily understand yet that some writers, when the full, I have no problem with the writer wanting full rights with the story, but the minute that you put it out there in the comic book format, you're not only sharing your story, but you're also allowing an artist to come in and put themselves into the story. So it doesn't just become, yes, about, let's say 80% to 90% is your story, but that 10% that artist is giving you is helping build your story to become reality. Without the artist, I think Kyle talked about it. Without the artist, there's the concept of a comic book doesn't exist.
Yep.
uh,
There is no comic book.
yeah, there is no. It's just it's a book. So comic books, unless you write it and you draw it yourself, is a collaborative work. No matter what you do, it's owned by two
Yep.
people. Well, how many people are in the project? And those two people, at the end of it, it's not just the image of the book is not a one person image anymore. Now it's multiple people.
Agreed.
I think that's working with a lot of indie comics. I think that's what they're missing sometimes. So they would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a price," and that's it. But that
Yeah.
artist is giving part of their soul into the book.
Right.
That's
Right.
why I keep
it's-
telling Marco that he's a co-creator. He won't listen to me. I almost have to beat him in the head with it, but like co-creator.
I mean, I don't mind. I feel like you put so much into it. I don't mind being part of the book. I don't mind putting my name into it and be like, okay, yeah, I created this book. But you yourself sometimes put yourself down. Like for Kyle
Yeah.
said it, the writer always puts their name first because they are the initial idea, and the artist comes second because they come second. It doesn't mean that the artist is less important. It's just the artist built upon your idea. But you're always like, no, I'm putting your name first. I'm like, I didn't create the story, Eddie. You did.
Yeah. That is warranted, and yeah, I guess to agree with you, Marco. Yeah, Eddie does that a lot, you know. And again, he doesn't like to toot his own horn, but I'm telling you, Eddie, you cannot toot your own horn. So I would personally love it as your brother. I would love to see your name first for once. But again, because you regard Marco so much that you would rather have his name first is pretty cool.
Hmm.
But and I said, this is coming from not just as your brother, but also as a fan. You know full well, you know, how off I go about the writers. And I look at it kind of like with you bringing up directing, Marco. Uh, the writer is the director of the whole team. You know, the envisionment that he has of this train of thought that he wants to pull out from the universe into a comic book geek's hand. You know, it's like, this is what I have in mind, and your responsibility is a Marco. You know, well, that's great. This is a wonderful idea. Unfortunately for you, you know, that can't be done on paper. You know, that's going to stay in your brain. But what I can do for you is use this wonderful medium that is paneling and, you know, take this little bit of what you have in your brain and freeze frame it. I can do that here. And where we go from there is not just based on you and your idea, but our ability to work together to make it happen. And that's one thing that Eddie's really good at. He's really good at working with people that want to work with him. You know, when somebody separates themselves from the project, whatever project that it is, you know, Eddie is still committed to the original idea that got them together in the first place. I even make the argument, and this is kind of stepping out of my place, but I make the argument that in his heart and in his mind, he's still beholden to that original concept. You know, this is the journey that we started. This is the why. In his mind, he's still there. He's still trucking the path. And unfortunately, like a lot of these other projects that he had going on, you know, nobody else is going to see the journey that he's been dragging his end the whole time through, because other people felt that, you know what, I have something else that's more important to me, and moved on from. And I do feel that nothing is ever over for Eddie King. I don't believe it for a second. Nothing is ever over.
Yeah, that's a hard
And
thing to accept, but
that's a good thing.
But that's the journey,
And
right?
yeah, and that's not a good thing as well, because, you know, for something as you do understand that I've seen you passionate about all kinds of things and all kinds of people. I have never seen you this passionate about anything. And I'm excited as a fan, not as your brother, not as somebody that knows you directly, but as a fan of your work. Your excitement for this project excites me, because you have somebody that's equally as committed to the original idea. And again, I expect more evolution out of this project moving forward, even if it's as something as tightening up the manner in which we approach Kickstarter next time around. You know, you guys have that experience behind you. You have that understanding behind you. You have that resolution of the fact, okay, we fucked up. We fucked up hard. And instead of pointing fingers at where everything went wrong, because ultimately Eddie King going to point the finger right back at his team. It's my fault. I fucked up. I did all of this stuff. That shit ain't helping nobody, especially all the people that you are trying to represent. That's unhelpful at this point. But now that you got this shit, and I'm telling you, you got it, Eddie. The same way that I told the backup stories that I've been privileged to read from you, like that shit has never hit the same mark twice. Each opportunity you were ever given, it's like I hate the one that came previous because the next one that I see is on a whole nother level.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I'm glad that I didn't see your new shit first because I would shit all over all your original stuff. Because this is where the market is now, you
Yeah.
know. But because I was there from the ground up, I see you get a little more confident, you take a little more risk, you push your art. I love that. I really do. Because I know a lot of artists and many of them don't like getting pushed. And you don't give two shits. It says, I'm gonna push you and I'm gonna continue to push you until you are out of my reach to push any further. And I can see that again in just these small little snippets of borrowed concepts of somebody else's shit. And
Mhm.
then now you have somebody again that is equally committed to the same concept. And
Yeah.
he's willing to allow you to push him. And he ain't afraid to push back. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
That's the one. That's the thing. And
That's super.
that's I think, and the other part about it is, and like at some point, you know, that's what these things are about. That's why artists have drinking draws when they go to cons. That's why people sketch their commissions all cramped up in one hotel room, like beer farts and freaking like just artist sweat. It's because like in a collective, it's easier to take. It's easier to take criticism. In a collective, it's easier to take praise. Same thing. For me, I guess my deal is the same as like Marco said earlier. Like when you find the way to have that balance of putting yourself out there, putting your project out there, being equal parts part of it and autonomous, that's like a really hard thing to do. But most of it comes from just like talking and not bullshitting, like just being kind of real about what it is you're thinking. I think the cool thing about us is we were given, you remember when I was just a fan of Kyle, like you remember
Yeah.
that. And like,
Oh,
but like, what is it that I do when I'm a fan of somebody? What do I do? I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. Like, I got to know, I need to know what's going on. Sometimes following that is really hard to do. And like knowing it is one thing, but like knowing that it works is another thing. So I'm glad that we had like a huge process with Kickstarter, which, Marco told me from the start, like, oh bro, this thing is going to go. I was worried like every step of the way. Like, but at the same time, I did know, and I told Marco this the other day, like, it doesn't matter if the Kickstarter's backed or not. All I'm going to do is reload and do it again. Like, if you care about it, you're going to keep pushing for it. So I guess my thing is like any artists that watch or writers or other comic people that are like back in the book and just kind of looking at it from the outside looking in. I think the cool thing that we're doing differently is like, I do want to show people how to get in. I do want to show people the door. And we've kind of illuminated that, man. Like, it's just taking risks. It really is. It's taken, everybody says, oh man, I hate it when people say work for exposure, but sometimes you have to work for exposure, man. I hate it when people say it's not about how much
I'm
work
still in that part of my career.
But it's like, I've never wanted to pay somebody so damn badly. You know what I mean? It's like when you see somebody putting equal parts in, it's like, man, I really want to like do something here. Because if you don't eat, you can't make anything. You can't draw books, you can't write books, you can't do shit if you don't eat. So all creators out there, like, understand, like, budget yourself into your project or you will die hungry. The thing about it is listening when people tell you things. Don't just take stuff at face value, like accept praise even if you don't believe it. And then like pushing, like, and doing shit that makes you uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like doing things that make you very uncomfortable Like this whole thing right now is it at first to me it felt like, oh man, I really don't want to go out there and just do this, that, or the other and kind of talk about my own shit forever. But at the same time, like I would pay money to see this.
We're building our careers. We're slowly, and it's gonna become normal. I gotta get used to this too. I mean, at some point, I'm already starting to do it. I'm doing clips of me drawing. I've seen people making a shit ton just drawing videos. But you're right. I mean,
That's the real man.
that's been my 2 years in. Well, 3. I think it's about to be 3. It's 2023 now. I graduated 2020. It's that idea of like doing something you're passionate about and trying to make money. The two are very hard to handle. And I think Kyle explains it in a way that's Kyle says, if you're doing what you love, just keep doing, just draw whatever you want, you know. But at the beginning of my career, I understand that I'm gonna have to take some jobs, that I'm gonna have to make money and exposure. But I also want to do passion projects. So that's why of course I said yes to you, Eddie, and I'm doing projects to make money. And I understand it's a step by step. This could be struggle as hell until at some point people pick up on you. And I think doing things like this it normalizes for us. And I think, like you said, artists should be able to be extrovert and introvert at the same time. And I think Eddie, you're very extrovert, but you can be very introvert sometimes. Very like when something doesn't go your way, you become very introvert. And I'm like, Eddie, that's just part of the struggle. Let's do it. I remember trying to bring you back into being excited about this project. I literally was like, I'm gonna color this cover and then post it. See what Eddie says. And then I did it, and then he got excited again. It's
nice.
Yeah, people don't realize that it was, like I was like, I got kids, and I have a future, and everybody always says like, I don't have a future. No matter who you are, you have a future. Whether it's grim or great is up to you. Well, I was doing my damnedest to make sure it was great, and it was just like shitting on me left and right, dude. Like, and it was happening very publicly. And I think that was the part about it, was that there were so many things in my life that were public that were not necessarily of my doing, like my choice, that like it seemed like putting things out there that I loved was just fucking pointless. So the fact that you stayed in it so hard really kept me there. I think that's why a lot of creators fall off early, is because like they don't take things as if they're on a ship in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just go from one point to another like this on the ocean. It's not like do everything's fine. There's waves, man. There's waves the whole time, whether you know it or not. There's waves. So you doing that kind of stuff to like re-energize me was great. And then I'm sure like me finally doing certain shit to like push things forward makes you happy, re-energizes you for the project. So it is a give and take. And I just like caution people not to take that for granted, because you're always going to go through that part where you're like, man, is this even worth it? If one person says yes, then yeah, it's worth it.
I mean, I honestly, I want to do a project where they allowed me to explore myself a little bit, project that was not based off like entirely off money. Because of course I drew the pages, I colored the pages without getting paid. It was something that I did on my own personal time, which at the same time brings out something more than me just working for money.
Yeah.
Brings a little bit more extra. That's me.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like there's always this thing about like artists and writers and the this, that, and the other. I think a lot of times people forget that writers are like working 2 jobs. I think Kaio can remember when I worked like a fucking 3rd shift job at a gas station on top of raising my children and on top of doing my other stuff just to get enough money to pay an artist for pages. And as soon as I paid him for all those pages, I quit that job. But like, but you have to be willing to do that, right? So like an artist hates it when a writer says, hey man, this will give you exposure, but no money. But if the writer isn't fucking exploiting himself and really trying to give this artist money, then it's, you can kind of see where you're at. I feel like early on in my career, I kept waiting for what the price tag was going to be for somebody to give a shit. And the difference was the first con I went to, and I brought my book, and I brought the thing I showed on my website earlier. I had all of my work in a book. I brought it. I gave it to professionals. Number one, they looked at me and were like, "Holy fuck, you made this?" And it's like, "Yeah." And then number two, they were like, "How did you get these people to work on your book? Because I've never heard of you." And I'm like, "Oh, I just asked them, and I paid them." And they were like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I took all these other jobs." When we went to the hotel that night, the first night, Kyle, Aaron Connolly, and Justin Greenwood, and a couple of other people. Honestly, people who were attached to this project. They were telling everybody "Hey man, this motherfucker took extra jobs so he could pay an artist." And it really, I think that's why Kyle gave me a chance. I think that's why Kyle gives you a chance, because you remember when he said, you give a shit. I caution people to stop giving a shit about themselves as much as they do their project.
Also, I think Kyle gave me a chance because I did half semester I took a whole semester, 2 semesters to create a comic book really fast. It was shitty. It's really shitty, but he saw the potential I had. I think it was like, oh, he has the patience to make a comic book.
Well, and you constantly say man, I can't wait to be a writer. You just did it. You just became one because you said, I created a book and it's shitty. You're
I'm telling you right now, it's like there are people that will never finish a project. They will never complete it, regardless of how you feel about it. And maybe it's true, honestly. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's as shitty as you're representing it now. That doesn't matter. What matters is you fucking do it.
Yeah.
I
said that on the podcast the other day with Marco. That was the number one. I was like, that's the difference, is you got to finish. You have to be a finisher. If you want to be in comics, you have to finish. So that's it, man. Finish.
And the same way,
and get better.
The same way that I feel about Eddie's progression in every shot that he's ever been given. I highly doubt that you're ever gonna make another story that you feel is as shitty as that first one, because you already expect more of yourself. And the people that care about your work, not even just you as a person, people that care about your work, maybe you're gonna allow them to have access to this story. And what the fuck is this? Maybe. But for sure, these people will never expect you to hit that mark again either. Yeah. But how the hell will we ever know if that mark wasn't established first?
That's true.
You would have never known. And so now that we know, okay, this is a thing, it happened, and it's never going to happen again. I probably would treasure that story more than anything else, because the Marco that I know today was only possible because of that story. But again, that's the type of fan that I am. I would rather see, even Donny Cates. I'm a huge Donny Cates fan, and he shit on his first work that he ever did for Marvel, but I saw things in there that I have never seen from him again. And it's cool and it's sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Mr. Cates, apologize if you ever hear this, but what I'm saying about Eddie and what I'm saying about you, I don't see in Cates' work today.
Okay.
And so with that, we can see the potential of somebody nailing things out of the park and forgetting what it was like to even get that shot to step up the plate.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like Andy Dwyer said on The Office, man. Or not Andy Dwyer, but like Andy Bernard said on The Office. I wish somebody would tell us when the good old days were happening. You know,
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. You know, but that's part of the whole thing. And I think that going forward, like anybody that's still wanting to back the project, you know, go back the drink and draw portion, because that's essentially what this shit is. I don't think people understand, but basically writers and artists and shit get together at cons and they talk about how they get shit and how they do shit and how they hate their own shit and how they should do this. And then like, I mean, like, honestly, you're just comfortable enough to have these very raw and exposed conversations, and they lead you to something else. Like, I think it's super great. The fact that we got funded tonight blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, I'm in a state of euphoria right now. We can keep driving this shit up so that people can get some more stuff. And I think part of the extras that we're going to give with our next Kickstarter are going to be things more along the lines of like, you know, I'll give out copies of previous shit we've done.
Yeah.
You know, I think your sketchbook is a big thing. I don't think people realize, like, it's not just about fulfilling the book orders for Kickstarter. It's about creating a platform for us to fucking eat tomorrow so we can make something else for you.
Yeah.
And honestly, like Kyle, and honestly, like John Rauch tells me every day that if you're not in it for somebody else, then you're not fucking in it.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not going to rise if you're not going to help people rise. So we can keep having these kinds of conversations, man. I'd like to make it more regular. We can do this kind of shit and hopefully help some other things get made. But I appreciate you guys for doing this. I love the fuck out of you. We're funded. I'm going to go take my last child to bed and probably dance a jig. And I'm
going to color some things.
You do it. And I think we should have another live, like at least maybe the last day or something like that. Probably not.
We can do it tomorrow. It's fine.
Yeah, we can do it tomorrow. And
we'll keep it under 2 hours. This one went for 4 hours.
Oh, I appreciate
the little one's still in the way.
Ali!
Hi.
Love you, little miss. Miss you dearly. I probably didn't look this way last time you saw me.
Yeah, she was laughing. She was looking at the beard earlier. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. And I think that part of like the reason it kind of went on tonight is because these are the things that are fun. Like, I wanted people to see how in conversation you can get and how you can find different things, because that's what making comics is about. It's about talking about shit that people don't really like to talk about. It's about telling yourself things that maybe you don't want to hear. And it's about finishing. So let's do that shit. Me and Marco are going to finish. I know Kaeo is going to be along the way. So I appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
All
Love
right.
you guys.
Congratulations. Love you.
Good night.
Allah.
Shoot.